All right, everybody, here we go. Today is Friday. Thank God it's Friday, July 24th, 2026. A little tired from last night. Isaiah and I,
Freedom Friday.
Freedom Friday. I emceed an event for David Robertson, who's running for House Rep out in Jefferson County. But we got home late. Little tired, Isaiah. You a little tired?
Oh, yeah.
Then I had to prepare. So I didn't go to bed till about 1 in the morning, got up at 5:30. So it's a short day of rest, or short evening of rest for us.
Yes.
But got a great show for you. Let me just kind of lay out things very quickly. So the title of the show, well, should we talk about what we were going to call the show and how this plays? Let's start here. So the original title of the show was Zionist Stooges and MK Ultra. That's why I said that was going to be the title of today's show. Now, if you're a Zionist, I want you to understand, I don't hate Zionists. I disagree, but I don't, I'm not at odds with Zionist philosophy. I'm at odds with Zionist stooges, and I hope people understand what the difference is, and we'll talk about it here in just a minute. But Isaiah, do you want to tell them what happened when I sent you the title of the show today?
Yeah, so when I was trying to create the thumbnail, we use an AI generation to make the thumbnails because I only have 2 minutes to work on that. And so I put in the prompt to create it, and I said, this is the title, Zionist Stooges and MK Ultra. And it thought and thought and thought, and it said, "Oh, sorry, that that might violate our policies, our content policies, because it might be offensive and things like that." And so then Rob's like, "Hey, we should see what other religions or ideologies that it will not let you do." And so he said, "Try Christian Stooges and MK Ultra." And I tried that, and same thing, same answer. So I was like, "Okay, it's pretty fair." And then we're like, "Actually, hey, let's try Muslim Stooges and MK Ultra," right? And it created it, and so that was extremely surprising to me.
It's right. So you can denigrate. There it is. So you can denigrate certain religions, and you cannot others, and that would be free speech, right, Isaiah? That's free speech. That's like, can Muslims live in the United States? Listen, I'm not defending anything. I'm just making an observation, if that's okay for people. So you can make fun of Muslims, but you can't poke fun at Zionism or Zionists, and you can't poke fun at Christians on this particular AI tool, but you can for Muslims. Isn't that interesting? I just think that is an interesting.
Very interesting.
And we thought about that right away. I said, you know what? I wonder if this is universal, that you just can't poke fun at religious, especially a major religion like Islam. But you can. You just can't do it with
surprise
our Zionist stooges. Okay, so today on the show, we've got a guy named John Potash. I was watching his trailers. A friend of mine, Jeff Wilson, hooked me up with him. I love the idea of MK Ultra because things don't make sense to me. I'm always fascinated by how people can just be in this haze with all of this information at their fingertips, and they can't figure out the most simple things, and yet you get into other portions of their life, and they're brilliant people. They just can't see the nose on their face with certain things, and that is why MK Ultra has always fascinated me. When this author by the name of Tom O'Neill wrote his book about MK Ultra and the CIA and brought in Charles Manson into the equation, I was really fascinated. Anybody that's listened to the show long enough knows that I watched Helter Skelter through a crack in my door when my parents. It was a 2-part series, Isaiah, on TV back in the 70s. And my parents were all talking about it. It was going to be a big deal when it came out. Everybody was looking forward to the Charles Manson story because in that generation, it was captivating, just the horrific nature of these murders. So when the movie Helter Skelter came out, it was on regular TV. My parents had kind of built it up, so I wanted to know what was going on. So when they were watching the movie, I was watching it too through a crack in my door. I was supposed to be in bed sleeping, and I wasn't. Isaiah, can you imagine? I was watching it, and it's so terrified me and freaked me out that it always kind of stuck in my head, the story of Charles Manson. Then I started reading books about Charles Manson. I think everything that was written about Charles Manson, it blew my mind because, again, it was kind of like when I learned about propaganda and the Nazis and the pictures from Nazi Germany.
Yeah,
those things just for some reason stuck in my head, and I could not, as a young person, wrap my mind around the idea that humanity could be so devilish. When you're a kid, you don't see the world through that lens. And, I'm talking about maybe 7 or 8 years old. I'm watching Charles Manson, the Helter Skelter movie, through a crack in my bedroom door as my parents were watching it, number one. And then at 10 years old, they were teaching about propaganda. Can you imagine? We were learning propaganda at 10 years old at Kratz Elementary School with my teacher, Mrs. Moore, who recognized that I was fascinated by it and got me a book. It was a child's version of Mein Kampf. I mean, think about that at 10 years old. That's not how the world works today. Anyway.
Now, we were talking about it last night at David Robertson's event. You're like, wait, they don't say the Pledge of Allegiance and all the schools here? And people are like, no, not in mine. Yeah, in ours, not in ours.
Charles County, they did.
Yeah.
Right, St. Charles County, they still. But when I was a kid, when you started class, I was just naturally stood up, and that was the first thing you did every day was recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Nonetheless, today, MK Ultra. I'm going to play a couple trailers here for you in just a minute. But this guy John Potash is doing trailers on MK Ultra. And the people that are named in his series I've always thought about it. I mean, I probably could have done this documentary on my own, right? If I'd had the money and the financing, I was in that kind of world. Because once I started to understand the premise of MK Ultra, I started really digging into it and thinking, okay, let's think of all the assassinations. MK Ultra, one of the theories behind MK Ultra was that you could create an assassin. And then when that assassin did his business, he would have no recollection of it. So let's just walk through some of the people we already know that are attached to Jolly West. Jolly West, we find out years after, was a court-appointed psychiatrist. I don't know what he was, a court-appointed professional to deal with some of these people like Charles Manson, Jack Rubenstein, better known as Jack Ruby, Sirhan Sirhan, who was the supposed assassin of Robert F. Kennedy. So when you start to see that, you're like, wait a minute, what is going on here? So a government psychiatrist attached to Sid Gottlieb and MK Ultra is also a court-appointed psychiatrist for assassins of major public officials. Well, where's my ABC 1, 2, 3? Wait a minute, hang on, let me put this together for you. ABC, EBS 1, 2, 3. Right? So if the United States government has somebody that says they have perfected the idea of taking memories out of a human brain and putting memories that were not there, but they put it into your brain through drugs and repetition, that person, Jolly West, was writing letters to the guy running the MK Ultra programs, Sid Gottlieb, according to Tom O'Neill, who wrote the book about Charles Manson, CIA, Charles Manson, CIA, and MK Ultra. It starts to make sense what's going on here. And that's why I call some of these people Zionist stooges. Remember when everything in modern history began to change after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Later in 2017, when documents are released, we start to recognize that Angleton was communicating on his own with people within the CIA working on behalf of the state of Israel. John F. Kennedy didn't want Israel to have nuclear weapons. There's big fights going on between him and the leadership of Israel. And then all of a sudden, much like Charlie Kirk, there's suspicion that Israel was involved, but the media will not allow that conversation to take place. Same with Charlie Kirk, same with John F. Kennedy, same with Robert F. Kennedy and Sirhan Sirhan. Speculation, but no proof, because you can't prove anything, but you can use your common sense. If a court-appointed psychiatrist / psychologist, I don't know what he is officially named, Jolly West, was the court-appointed psychiatrist for Charles Manson, Sirhan Sirhan, and Jack Rubenstein, then I just think we got to go to the Jackson 5. ABC, EBS 1, 2, 3. Fascinating to me. So let's just go through some of these trailers, if you don't mind. I want to start the show by giving by just putting forth the trailers for this documentary. He's done I think 2. This will be his 3rd on MK Ultra, the assassins in MK Ultra, the history of MK Ultra. You may or may not know some of it. Well, you may know some of it, or you may not know it. I've talked about it endlessly. Once it got into my radar, I started really following the stories of MK Ultra because I just find it absolutely fascinating. All right, clip number 1, Isaiah, if you don't mind. CIA trailer. It's called CIA Drugs Are Us. Is the I think it's going to be part 3 that he's coming out with. I'm not really sure what number he's got going on here, but let's just play these 3 trailers to get everybody up to speed. Number 1.
The CIA was in effect acting as America's hidden Ministry of Culture.
This is about the culture. I've got these backwards in I laid them out backwards for you, Isaiah. So this one is about the musicians. You know the Laurel Canyon stories, Isaiah?
Nope.
Okay. this will give you some idea of it. So the idea was that culture was changed through music, through CIA, and through MK Ultra. That's the premise. Okay, so this is the first one. This is about the music industry, because music does shape culture.
Mm-hmm.
Music industry taken over by the CIA, and how MK Ultra plays into it. Go ahead.
While this document shows the CIA was working on the use of LSD and other drugs for unconventional warfare, evidence supports that the battlefield would include whoever opposed their racist pro-war agenda.
Flying in arms to our allies, flying back out with the heroin. The first target being U.S. GIs during the Vietnam War, the second target being the United States itself.
Infiltration of cocaine into the Black Panther Party, its leadership, Huey P. Newton being the main target.
The head of the DEA at the time, Robert Bonner, said that a ton of pure cocaine worth hundreds of millions of dollars had been smuggled into the United States. He blamed the CIA.
And we know the FBI had a 300-page file on Lennon. Much of it remains classified for national security reasons. The doorman at the Dakota that night was Jose Perdomo, a veteran of the CIA's botched Bay of Pigs invasion, a professional hitman.
I cannot think of a case in which I have had someone inject himself with a large amount of heroin and then proceed to kill himself. It just doesn't make sense.
We're speaking with Brother Tupac Shakur, who was the national chairman of the New African Panthers.
The Code of Thug Life is a revolutionary document. He began to broker the peace between these gangs.
In the ghetto off Nika means fight to survive, head pack for the dream.
Okay, so you mentioned Kurt Cobain. Remember Kurt Cobain?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a little before your time?
Oh no.
That was the grunge rock, and it was incredibly popular. It was a new form of music coming out of the Northwest. He was a legend in his own time, and he dies of what they said was a heroin overdose. You saw Cyril Wecht on there. I think he's a pathologist, and he said, I've never seen anybody inject themselves with that much heroin and then commit suicide, because if you've ever seen anybody who's really high on heroin, they're not looking to do much of anything other than lay around and do nothing.
Yep.
Very interesting. John Lennon, he says the doorman, if you know the John Lennon story, John Lennon was killed outside of a hotel by Chapman, I think the guy's last name was. And it was very interesting because John Lennon, if you remember the era, I assume we have some people back from that era, was very politically involved. He did basically starved himself in a hotel with Yoko Ono, or in an apartment, I guess I should say. She was always like, what is he doing with Yoko Ono? What's going on around here? Mm-hmm. We'll talk to this documentarian, John Potash, about that exact story. And then
this all lines up kind of with what that documentary that my mom made me watch that I talk about called They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll. And,
yeah, that's right. You've talked about that multiple times with me.
Yeah. And so it all aligns. Now in that one, they're more talking about the spiritual influence, but as we all, our political savants that listen to this show know that the dark side of the government is a dark spiritual aspect of the world. So I think it's one and the same. I don't think they're separate things that are happening. I think that they're both saying the same thing. It's just, how do you look at it, right?
You're fighting demonic forces at some level. People have to recognize that. It's just, it just kind of is what it is. And I got to say, just to interrupt this programming for just a minute, my buddy Charlie Cagle says, good morning, all 18 minutes late. What did I miss? Isaiah, do you come late for your job? Do you show up late for your job?
10 minutes early.
You just can't show up whenever you want to, Charlie. The show starts no later than 9:10, somewhere between 9 and 9:10, and you have to be prepared. You can't just show up whenever you want to, okay?
I love it.
So we can't go back and, tell you all the things that we talked about for 18 minutes. Either be here on time or you miss out. Okay, clip number
I love it.
Clip number 2, CIA trailer number 2. Now, again, these documentaries are called CIA Drugs Are Us, like Toys R Us. Drugs Are Us by John Potash. Clip number 2.
CIA Drugs Are Us.
Have the American oligarchs and U.S. intelligence used drugs for social control?
The CIA was, in fact, facilitating the movement of opiates to the U.S.
The team of spies lured many and initiated them to acid. He laughed so hard that he threw up. Mind expansion at its best. Did U.S. and British intelligence manipulate musicians to help promote drugs? In the fall of 2018, a journalist who was friends with John Lennon and Yoko Ono came out with a biography where he said Yoko introduced John to heroin.
And as they're singing, you know, go, go, Johnny, go, whatever, she picks up the mic and I swear to God goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's that look.
Was Courtney Love the Yoko Ono of her generation?
With Courtney here, it's more dangerous.
What else might they be doing with drugs?
And in the case of Jolly West, in one of his letters to Gottlieb asking for more funding.
That's where Manson would go, along with some of his followers, part of a study and getting their LSD from there.
And I know it was LSD because I saw it before he put it in my Coke.
Boy, it's interesting when you get into the engine of how our society is actually formed. It is bizarre. No society that is really thinking straight would do the things that our society does. You just wouldn't do it. You wouldn't have a structure that allows for the things that we allow. And the number one thing right now, when I talk about societal just evils, think of the idea just for a second. Think of a society that goes out and fights wars around the world, aggressive wars. Like we go into Iran, that's an aggressive war. When we attack Iraq, that's an aggressive war. When we go into Yemen, when we go into Syria, these are aggressive wars. Think of a society that has aggressive wars and has a major political party fighting for the transgender changing, or the transgenderism, the changing of sexuality for 8 and 9 and 10-year-old kids. Just think about that for a second. Think of how absolutely evil that is. I think my son wants to be a girl. He's 10 years old. 10, 8. There's a story in California where this kid's like 6 years old and the mother wants to get transgender surgery for the kid, and the guy fights it, and the court side with the mom.
Jeez.
This is our society. Just think about it. And if you think that that isn't induced by drugs and propaganda and conditioning, then I don't know what else I can say to you. You are somehow under the same spell as one of our major political parties. And by the way, it bleeds over into the Republican Party. We'll bring in MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to kind of explain how that system works here in just a bit. Let's do clip number 3. This is the final trailer, and then we'll bring in John Potash about an hour from now, about an hour and 5 minutes from now, right around 10:30 Central Daylight Time, to talk about these documentaries. This is going to be great for me. I don't know if anybody else is going to love it as much as me. I am so incredibly fascinated by how the mind works, how it can be hijacked, how people can be, an entire universe can be sold to them that's not in reality. I find it fascinating. Clip number 3, again, CIA, drugs are us. One more.
Reveal the dark legacy of MK Ultra.
There is no question about it at all. Elements of the Central Intelligence Agency of our country killed John Kennedy.
My father's first instinct, which was a good instinct, was that the CIA had killed his brother.
All these elements of programming, that is hypnosis, drugs, are described in the CIA documents in great detail.
I could not recognize my own hand. I thought I had killed somebody.
They had already begun to control my mind.
The CIA used MK Ultra techniques involving psycho-hypnotic drugs and hypnosis to have Chapman murder Lennon.
Arms going this way and drugs coming this way.
These people are getting LSD, which is a pretty powerful drug.
The CIA was, in fact, facilitating the movement of opiates to the U.S.
Someone wanted him out of jail doing what he was doing.
We found a extensive cover-up.
What did I think? I thought, how did this happen? How did I end up here?
I snuck into his office and found files with reports and memos addressed to CIA.
So all these things are described in great detail in the CIA documents. They actually happened for sure.
Drugs are us, the puppets we become in the shadows of their games. Who's really?
All right, I can't wait. I gotta get to an hour, but I want to tie some things together. If you remember earlier on, we started with a process. We started with Kay Griggs. Now, if you don't know who Kay Griggs, or you did not get to see that particular episode, Kay Griggs, I'm just going to be very quick because I know people who listen every day go, Rob, we heard it, but one more time. Kay Griggs in 1996, if you go to YouTube, it says 98. I believe it was 96. In 1996, she did an 8-hour interview. Her husband was in military intelligence and graduated from Princeton. She does 8 hours. She kept a diary. So did her husband, of all of these different things that had gone on in the world. And he had told her that gay men were being groomed through the major colleges, Princeton, Harvard, and Yale, groomed through those colleges with MK Ultra type operations because they could control the mind of these gay men. So we did that. We've been talking about, if you've been listening to the show all the way back to the very beginning, I've been talking about these men that certainly appear to be gay to me. And if you say, Rob, how can you possibly tell if somebody's gay? You can't necessarily. But I was in the fashion business for 30 years, and I worked around a lot of gay people, a lot of gay people. And at some point, you start to recognize just a vibe and a feel. You just do. I think if you're around gay people for a long period of time, you start to recognize they are just a little bit different than heterosexuals, and you can kind of vibe it when you're around them for a certain amount of time. And I vibe it with a lot of people in our government. And then what happens? Immediately after we start to do those stories, here comes Hunter Biden. As Phil Valencia said, my old producer, he said, if you throw it out there into the world, it's out there forever. And it gets picked up and you'll start to see more of it. And that's exactly right. So we talk about Kay Griggs. We talk about the gay mafia within the Republican Party in Washington, D.C. And then Hunter Biden starts to come out. Let's tie three things together very quickly. And let's just remember the story. Mike Johnson, who Hunter Biden tags as gay, right? Or at least implies that he's gay. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. Right? Are we cool so far? Mm-hmm. He says Mike Johnson is gay. Mike Johnson, as soon as he became the Speaker of the House, one of the most powerful positions on planet Earth, if you believe these political people have power. He says the number one thing that he wants to do when he becomes Speaker of the House is fund Israel. It's the first thing that he said. You have Teddy Cruz, Mr. Heidi Cruz, because his wife is high up in the Jewish banking world. He said when he came to the Senate, his number one agenda was to protect Israel. He said that on the Tucker Carlson show. Then you have Josh Hawley. I used to play a clip. It was a little downloaded clip of Josh Hawley when I started understanding what Zionism really meant. And I started talking about Josh Hawley. And somebody asked him about his position with Israel. And he goes, what are you, a Jew hater? And I used to play that clip all the time. I would just hit it. What are you, a Jew hater? What are you, a Jew hater? That's Josh Hawley. Conflating anti-Semitism with questioning the relationship between the United States and Israel has been the technique. And young people like Isaiah don't buy it anymore. Young people like Charlie Kirk, we're not buying it anymore. And that is why Charlie Kirk, in my humble opinion, is no longer with us. I think he's no longer with us. Mm-hmm. Who knows anymore?
Should we show him the clip?
You want to do the Hunter Biden clip?
Or I was thinking of the Candace clip.
Let's do, how do I have this laid out?
Hunter Biden, I got that one ready too.
Well, let's do it in this manner because I want to tell a story and I'll mess it up if I don't do that. So let's go to the Zionist Stooges portion of it. Well, let's do the gay because I'm in the
story.
Yeah. So here's what I want to tie together. Zionist Stooges, the gay mafia, and MK Ultra. Let's tie all three theories that we've been working for, 5 years now? I've been working on these theories.
We can call it the unholy trinity.
And they're coming together, Isaiah. And they're not coming together just simply through me. You're starting to see everybody start to talk about it. Isn't it fascinating how that works? And why don't I get some kind of, is it Pulitzer or Pulitzer? I don't understand why. I'm the one that tied these things together from the very beginning of my show. Where's the awards? I can't even get algorithmed on these.
Maybe we can get you a Medal of Commendation. I mean, they give it out to anyone.
I mean, if you're going to get one, if Dr. Darth Fauci can get one, why can't Rob get one? I think it's only fair. All right, let's start with Glenn Beck. How many people used to like Glenn Beck when he was on Fox News and he would come out and he'd talk about George Soros and he'd talk about everything was going down? I was a huge Glenn Beck fan. When I go back home and you look over my shoulder and you've got the books, you'll see several books from Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck is the number one Zionist stooge of the day. Let's just take a look at what our good friend, Israeli friend, Zionist stooge Glenn Beck had to say about Section 219 of the most recent passed NDAA. Let's just break it down. This is a little bit long, so I don't want to play the whole thing. But he says there's nothing to see here. This is ridiculous. Alexandria Cortez is coming out saying, oh my God, this and that. And he kind of makes laugh about it. Let it rock. This is Zionist stooge Glenn Beck.
I shared the wrong one. There we go.
It's number 10. I'm sorry.
No worries. There we go.
The defense bill yesterday in the House. The fight was all about Section 219, okay? 1,500 words in a bill of hundreds of thousands of words. And it creates something called the United States Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. You know, one thing Washington is not good at is naming stuff. Anyway, it orders the secretary to designate one official, an executive agent inside the Pentagon whose job is to coordinate and accelerate joint research, testing, and industrial cooperation with Israel. Counter drone, this is missile and air defense, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, directed energy, cyber, biotechnology, and to also identify Israeli origin technology that could be moved into American weapons programs and promote joint ventures, joint licensing, and American-based production with Israeli firms.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
so these are the things that he that he lists that the bill does. So he lists all the things, and I looked it up this morning, and these are the things that it does.
Yep.
And then he goes on to say that it's no big deal. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
I mean,
no big
you talk
deal.
about a Zionist stooge. Let it continue for just a minute, Isaiah. You'll see where he's going with it, and we'll move on.
AOC was like, oh my gosh, the Jews. It's an existential threat to our sovereignty and our democracy. It's going to merge parts of our military with the IDF. Jews, Jews, Jews. They're drinking the blood of little Christian children.
Okay, that's good. I can't take anymore.
Yeah.
He's become a cartoon character. Have you
What
noticed?
the heck are you talking about? Oh my gosh, that's like the most. What he's doing there is those are anti-Semitic tropes that are known,
of course,
common, and so she didn't say that, but because she's against Section 219,
that's right.
What do you hate Jews?
That's my point. Okay, so Zionist stooge number 1, Glenn Beck. Let's just go back to what Glenn Beck did recently. It's clip number 9, Isaiah. Now, you tell me, has anybody listening to the show today or listening later, we're finding out that a big portion of the audience listens later on at night because they're working during the day. So, and even if you're listening later on, if you make comment, like, share, comment, and subscribe, share, comment, and
we're getting a lot of comments on YouTube, right?
It's starting to happen. It is starting to happen. We'll get there. As I said, if I'm not the number 1 show in 3 years, I'm going to be very upset with everybody.
Everybody that's watching, especially.
Isaiah, it won't be my fault. It'll be your fault and the audience's fault. If we're not number 1 in 3 years, it's because we didn't do our job together. But I'm just kidding.
We need to play like a Alex Jones clip to motivate people, like one of those where he's like, "You're the Paul Revere."
You want my favorite Alex Jones one? Let me give you that one real fast because I absolutely love it.
You're a snake.
Right here.
You are a snake. You are a rat. You are a fraud. You are a backstabber. You are a handbiter.
I love the handbiter one. That's my favorite one. Okay, let's get back into this. So we're talking about Glenn Beck. I just had to throw that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Break it up just a bit.
This is a great point right here that Shield Wolf is making. Is Glenn Beck's Mormon? Do you know what Mormons believe?
I think I do.
About Israel?
No.
They think that Zion is in Utah, so they think that they're the Jewish people.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so it's interesting that he's
trying to get them on the show. You know that, don't you? They knocked on my buddy's door and they came. They were selling Mormonism. We sat these two, and they were great. I mean, they were good kids.
Yeah.
But you know what was interesting about these kids is when we started poking holes, because they came to the wrong house, obviously. So we started poking holes in their theory. They were looking up and they're like, yeah, I can understand that. I get it. Felt like you said they were conditioned and almost brainwashed. It did feel like that just a little bit. They were just kind of reciting what they were told to say. One of these young kids, I think, had a very prominent father in Utah. And, he grew up in that religion, and you said it was a cult. And I said, I don't know that it's a cult, but it is definitely conditioning of the mind to think.
If you think the Christian evangelical church is corrupt with money, the Mormon church is 10 times worse.
All right. I'm taking your word for it because you know that Glenn much better than I do. But I got to get to Glenn Beck because you know how you and I, we branch off and we forget.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that he's so pro. It's interesting that he's so pro Zionist and pro Israel, and in his religious beliefs, there's no bearing to that. You know what I'm saying? Versus
I think
evangelical Christian, the Christian Zionism aspect. You see what I'm saying? That's kind of interesting to me.
And I personally believe this is why I'm at odds, I think, with the Republican Party. We were talking about that as we were preparing for the show. I think the reason I'm a little bit at odds with the Republican Party is because it has become the Zionist party. If you are not down with Zionism, if you're not down with a complete and total alignment with Israel, then you're anti-Semitic. And I just want to say for anybody listening for the first time, to call me anti-Semitic is the most ridiculous thing in the world. I love all people, and that includes Jewish people. I don't see differences in people like everybody else does. Isaiah is Jewish. My last job was with somebody who wanted me to be in their family. They were Jewish. My father married into a Jewish family. My father went to school in U City in the 1960s, which was all Jewish. I think he was one of 5 Gentiles in the entire school. To say that I'm anti-Jewish is just absurd. That does not mean that I think the leadership of the state of Israel is doing the right thing. Big difference. And I'm so tired of the conflation. And every time I see somebody conflate it, I immediately think that they are a paid propagandist for the state of Israel because big money is coming to support that ideology. And it's across all of the social media influencers. It's everywhere. It's insane what is happening.
You could probably find a picture of him with Brad Parscale somewhere. I'm sure you could.
Oh, of course. Right. Okay. Here is Glenn Beck. And just tell me if you've ever written a letter to Bibi Netanyahu for membership into the state of Israel. Check this out.
Why I was born. But there is something about the state of Israel.
Can you start that from the very beginning?
That connects deeply. I don't know why I was born. But there is something about the state of Israel.
I got to get that clip.
That connects deep.
Sorry.
I don't know why I was born.
It reminds me of the Lindsey Graham where he's like, they're like hurricanes or people are suffering. What about our friends in Israel?
Your people are drowning and other houses are torn down. What about the people in Israel? That's Lindsey Graham, another gay man, right? If you want to bring the agenda. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. That's just what popped in my mind right there.
I apologize.
It's so funny.
Deeply to me. And standing up this time, as opposed to every other time there has been a program or a Holocaust.
This guy.
19 Holocausts. All of the programs where they would come in and just clean a town out of all the Jews. To have the privilege to stand with the Jew is a tremendous honor. Spiritually.
Financially.
So I want to read a letter that I wrote that I am sending to the state of Israel.
Oh,
what a buffoon.
Fantastic. Okay.
To Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the honorable officials at the state of Israel.
This guy.
I write this to you in a time of profound significance, a moment where history echoes its most harrowing and yet most resilient notes. The present-day world has eerily come to resemble the troubling shadows of the 1930s and 40s, where our Jewish brothers and sisters once again bore the weight of unprecedented persecution. The drums of war beat again, and the haunting chants of prejudice against the Jewish people have once more risen from hushed murmurs to overt threats.
Beautiful.
In this moment,
poetry.
I have chosen to ask you for citizenship
I hope he cries.
in the state of Israel.
Are you kidding me? What?
Yeah.
No way.
That's Glenn Beck. So
Oh my
you wonder why
gosh.
Glenn Beck is downplaying the idea that we're sharing military intelligence with the state of Israel. He goes, oh, what's the big deal? And then he lists all of the things that we're doing with them and acts like it's not what everybody else is worried about. It's bananas. So that is Glenn Beck. Now let's go to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm going to play these in a series so people get the gist of it. So Marjorie Taylor Greene has been very outspoken against the alignment with Israel. She was warning people. So was Ron Paul. So is Thomas Massey. But this is how they get away with it. You remember I said they always have the numbers. They call it whipping votes. Well, they're not whipping votes. The engine of our government, which is the money, the engine of our government knows what they want to get accomplished. And they know who needs political cover and they know who doesn't. And they play that game for everybody. So you'll see somebody vote for something and go, see, they voted for that. I love them. Well,
See, they voted against transgender surgeries. They're the best.
That means they're good. And then they go, but they voted for whatever. They voted for I don't know. Wait, give me something, Isaiah. They voted
Well,
for.
let's talk about this since we're talking about 219, right?
Go ahead.
Did you see on about Tim Burchett, right? I was just talking about this yesterday. It's funny how we put that out in the universe, right? And then I log on to X today, and people are talking about how, and he got community noted on X because it's like, wait, you voted against Section 219, but you voted to strike down any debate on 219.
Huh?
So what? That doesn't make sense.
Let MTG explain it very well. Here comes MTG explaining how your government works. Very quickly, nice and slow. I want everybody to hear me very quick, very slow. Your government in Washington, D.C. does not care at all about what you want. Zero, not 0.1%. They simply do not care. The only thing that the power structure in Washington, D.C. cares about is the methods from which to trick the average citizen. And they've come up with a brilliant scheme. Keep you busy, keep mom and dad working until the day they die, bankrupt them. One thing goes wrong, you have a divorce, now you're out of money. They keep you working until your very last day so that you're too busy to pay attention to what they're doing. And then they use the media to keep us fighting with each other. That's the advent of CNN. That's the advent of Fox News. They have different opinions. They make us fight against each other as they steal $40 with a T trillion from us. That's how it works. They keep us fighting amongst themselves. They use the media and Fox News and CNN and the like to sell it. And it works beautifully because nobody has the time nor the energy to do anything about it because they're trying to survive in a system that has been completely controlled and hijacked by thieves, international thieves, using puppets within our government to execute it. That is a fact. Let me get it for you real fast.
That's the fact, Jack! That's a fact, Jack!
All right, let's go to Marjorie Taylor Greene so she can explain it to us.
I just want to follow up on a video that I put out explaining the NDAA vote that happened yesterday.
She looked like she could beat me up.
Explaining the two votes.
Good.
Every time a bill passes the House floor, it has to cross two hurdles. The first vote is called the rule vote. The second vote is final passage vote. Now, that's super confusing and it's really stupid, but that's the way they do it. We had 7 total Republicans vote no on final passage to the NDAA because of Section 219 and other issues that they didn't like within the bill. We are thankful to them for voting no. However, that was a safe no vote, and let me explain that. There's 2 ways to vote no. There's the safe no vote, which is voting no on a bill when you know it's going to pass, so you don't have to make anybody mad, and you can still vote no because it's going to pass even without your vote. Then there's the courageous no vote, and that is voting no on the rule, the first vote for that bill to cross to final passage. When you vote no on the rule vote, you're voting no against everyone. You're voting no against leadership. You're voting no against the White House. You're taking a hard stand and saying, I am 100% against this bill. I do not want it to pass. There was only one Republican that took the courageous no vote on the rule vote. That was Thomas Massie. He voted no. The other Republicans only voted no on the second vote, the final passage vote, when they knew that the bill was going to pass, okay? So there's a difference, and that's what you need to understand. There's the 2 votes. One is the rule vote. The second vote is final passage. And the most courageous vote any member of Congress can take is voting no on the rule. Here's the difference. The rule vote passed 213 to 212.
You don't say.
213 to 212. If those 6 other Republicans had voted no with Thomas Massie on the rule vote, the rule would have failed and the NDAA could not have moved forward to the second final passage vote. However, they voted yes on the rule, allowing it to move forward, and Thomas was the only one that voted no. But when it came to final passage, 6 decided to vote no then because it was safe. You want to know why? Because there were 6 Democrats that were voting yes. That's what you need to know. If you want to put your members of Congress into action, Call them and start telling them to vote no on the rule. Don't let them make videos and wash their hands and say, I did everything I could. No, if they really want to stop something, vote no on the rule.
Reminds me of a song, Isaiah. You ready?
Games people play.
There you go.
It is.
It's amazing when you understand how the government works. If our society would pay attention to how government actually works, I think it would absolutely blow their mind, the corruption that goes on. They've created a system that is so complex that nobody knows anything about anything, and then I think they're vulnerable to simple propaganda. Well, I like what so and so says, therefore I'm going to vote for him or her because I like what that person says. Not having any understanding that once you get into Washington, D.C., unless you're jumping up and screaming that person is a bad person, that person is a bad person, this is how they rig the system. Anybody who's not doing that is a part of the system that has us in the shape that we're in now, where fuel prices go up and down. You have any idea? Do you see Tucker Carlson talking about how AI is determining prices?
Mm-hmm.
So Tucker Carlson just did something just very quickly. I thought it was fascinating. He said, if you're paying attention to the oil markets, you're recognizing that the Strait of Hormuz is closed and the oil prices were coming down. He said AI is obviously controlling it, just like they did with our thumbnails. That's why we started with that this morning, just like they are with the thumbnails. Because when Donald Trump says everything is great and you feed that into AI, AI recognizes that everything is great, despite the fact that everybody knows that nothing has changed. Donald Trump has said we've won the war 75 times. You feed that into an AI system, a learning language system, and all of a sudden it calculates that in and it controls the price of oil. It has nothing to do with the free market anymore. It's AI driven, and what goes into AI determines what comes out of AI, because as I like to tell my friends, AI is not human. AI is only as good as the information that is put into it. So when AI becomes your brain over time, as this starts out nice, you're like, oh, I can use AI. My son's talking about his work. He said, all they would do is tell me I need to learn AI because I'm trying to learn AI. And I said, exactly, because right now AI works to the benefit of many people in the professional world.
Mm-hmm.
And they will
similar to the Industrial Revolution.
They'll get addicted to it just like heroin.
Yeah.
They'll get addicted to it. And then all of a sudden, the people that stuck needles in your arm and left the borders wide open and sold you on climate change and the like, those people will have control of everything that you think, because your brain will be attached to AI. You'll think that AI is this incredible being out there in the space that understands everything better than you do. And you'll become dependent on it, and whoever has control of it with the AI data centers. Can we go there? Can we just transition right into that? I had Rick on yesterday, and Rick is saying that Donald Trump might be playing some form of really complex theater because he's trying to break away from the city of London, which I don't necessarily disagree with that. But at the end of it, if you listen to what Rick had to say, Rick said, but are they putting something in that's even worse? That I don't know. Well, I think we do know. I think we can tell by what's going on. There was a $500 billion investment called Stargate. And when did they do this, Isaiah? Do you remember when they announced this? This was day one of Trump's second administration. Day one. They didn't wait a half an hour. So as soon as Trump became the president on the his second term, he stands with Sam Altman and Larry Ellison, two Zionist stooges, and says, we are going to invest $500 billion with a B dollars into Stargate. And then all of a sudden you got AI data centers popping up all over the place. You're like, man, I didn't know this was going on. And all of the officials that are implementing it signed non-disclosure agreements, so you didn't even know why they approved it. And then Donald Trump comes out and says, boy, it's going to be a great windfall of money for the states. You're going to be able to collect taxes and this and that and the other. If you don't believe me, let's just go to that really fast. Isaiah, where is it?
12.
It is number 12. Here's Donald Trump selling AI data centers.
You have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you're going to have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection, but you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce taxes, and you're going to have something that if you don't have it, everybody else wants it.
Yeah, I really trust this guy about my energy bills when he promised us to cut them in half in 1 year, and he hasn't done that. So we should definitely trust him that he knows what he's doing with the AI data centers, right?
And if you didn't watch yesterday's show, if you haven't seen us do this before, Donald Trump stood before his crowd second time around in all of his rallies for at least a month, every single day on the campaign trail, all of his press conferences. I, Donald Trump, will cut your energy prices in half within 12 months of becoming president. And he said it over and over and over and over. I could do this for half an hour. Again,
from state to state to state.
From state to state, we're going to drop your energy prices in half. I guarantee it within the first 12 months. And if I don't do it, hold me accountable. And I always say to my friends and family, how do you know that the media is complicit? How do you know the Democrats are on the same page? Well, let me ask you. If you're a Democrat strategist and you're trying to take down the Republicans and Donald Trump, and you have an hour's worth of Donald Trump saying he's going to cut your energy bills within 12 months of becoming president, and here we are 18 months after he's become president, and your energy bills have went nothing but like this, Isaiah. If you're on a graph, it's going like this. It's going up, up, up and away, and a beautiful balloon. They're going like this, straight up. And if you were a Democrat or a Democrat strategist and you got the primaries coming up in a few days, I just asked the brilliant audience, the political savants that watch this show, would you use that against Donald Trump? I think you would, but they don't. And they don't because they're in the same game together.
Games people play.
Thank you.
Remember how yesterday I said, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, I said, hey, be sure to watch Pete Hegseth's hearing where he's requesting the budget, because what you're going to see is a lot of attacks and it's still going to pass. It's the NDAA will still pass, and it passed in the House, and you should watch it. They were grilling him. You would think that from the questions they were asking him, Rob, that it would not happen, because they're like, wait, 1 year ago, President Trump said we destroyed all their military and we completely obliterated all their nuclear powers. So why are you requesting $1 trillion now to continue this war? Right.
Exactly.
And at question,
look at
senator
Benghazi.
after senator after senator after senator would say the same, not the same thing, but essentially that in summary. Right.
Yes.
And no problems. Right. It's like, oh, it's all theater.
Can I say just one curse word today so people understand what it is? I'm sorry. I know people don't like me to curse. I generally use, colorful language in my private life. This is bullshit, top to bottom. Not most of it. Like when you go to watch the hearings on television and so forth, it's all scripted nonsense. They get you inflamed. They're supposed to, the people that you think are attacking the Republicans and the Republicans attacking the Democrats, that's just theater. World Wrestling Federation theater nonsense. And you can tell by the outcomes. You don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the outcomes of everything. It moves the way it's supposed to move. And these people are just puppets in the game. KFAB is what he called it yesterday, right? Rick Babbitt's KFAB, yep. I think he said, where they're in character all the time, but the outcome has already been predetermined, just like wrestling. It's just, and Donald Trump was involved in wrestling, right, Isaiah? I mean, he was involved in World Wrestling Federation nonsense. I mean, it's I don't understand. By the way,
Vince McMahon's wife, right, was the
Secretary of Education.
Secretary of Education.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make that up.
You really can't. All right, let's move over to Aaron Brockovich. Now, Donald Trump says, don't fight it. Put in these AI data centers. I mean, of course, it's going to do some really good things. It's going to bring in a lot of tax revenue for the states, which is the most important thing, that the states have more of your money. I mean, come on. So it's going to bring in tax revenue. They don't even talk about, because we're going to play this from Aaron Brockovich here in just a second. I think everybody knows who she is. But it's really, for me at least, I don't know about you, Isaiah, and how the audience sees it. I understand what it's going to do to the environment. I know there's a lot of people that are very concerned about what it's going to do to the environment, and I understand that. I'm not dismissing it. But the bigger thing that you need to pay attention to is, what are the AI data centers for? Cloud storage. What did Frank Church say in the CIA hearings in 1975? He said, let me paraphrase it for you. There is already a technology that exists that any information that is transmitted through the air can be stored by Big Brother, making it impossible to take on your government from that point forward. He said, if that gets into the wrong hands, we cannot allow that to happen, because once it does, we have gone into the abyss from which we can never recover. That's what he said. And now we're implementing it at a level where not only we have it, but it's in the cloud, which means the whole world has it or has access to it. And we're in bed spooning, lovemaking with Israel, who attacked the USS Liberty on purpose, along with the CIA in this government. in our country attacked their own sailors. That's not a guess. If you look at 15 people that tell you exactly what they saw and they were told to keep their mouth shut, like the USS Liberty veterans, you know. Do you know, Isaiah? Do you know whether the USS Liberty attack was intentional? Do you know?
Oh, do I know if it was intentional? Yes. Are you kidding?
Right. All you got to do is talk to these people. And I'm watching these people that will not talk to them. They won't have anything to do with them, because if you look 15 to 17, 80-year-old men in the eye and listen to them tell the story before, during, and after, there is no doubt in the world whatsoever, not even 0.1% chance that didn't happen intentionally. Everybody knows that is involved in the story that it was intentional, yet your government never told you that story. And in fact, they got these shills like Ben Shapiro who come out there and go, well, all the reports say that this is the way it went down. I said, well, that's the way the report said Lee Harvey Oswald killed John Kennedy too. Who cares what the government says? If the government is a part of the situation, then wouldn't it just make sense that the government would cover it up through all of their storytelling? Of course. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
Aaron Brockovich, number 7, talking about AI data centers. Listen to this real fast.
I think something politicians should really be looking at. The opposition is strong enough. And again, in my entire career, in 30 years, I've never seen something bipartisan, this united, that everybody better be paying attention to, because I think you're pushing people too far at this point. You're taking their water, their air is jeopardized, their land is jeopardized, their farmland is jeopardized, their sanctuary is jeopardized, their wildlife is jeopardized, the trees, the rivers, the creeks, the birds, all of it. It's a stake too high, including their health.
Yeah.
And they're just showing up, and it's enough.
Amen.
And I think some of our leaders should look at that. They are going to vote people out, and you've put the squeeze on us. It's too much. You're taking all of the natural resources, and the next thing that people are reporting, their electric bills. Who's paying for this? They are.
Okay. She says they're going to get voted out. Isaiah, this is another one, right? Because the system, in my opinion, still free to have an opinion. Did we look that up this morning? I don't want to get myself in legal trouble.
So far, so good.
I can still have an opinion. So this is just an opinion, so long as I'm still free to have it. The election system is rigged too. So you're not getting out of the box. This system is in complete lockdown, completely controlled. If you don't believe me, let's go to Sidney Powell. Clip number 14. So let's just move over to the elections. Just for a second, we're going to veer off, and just one of our topics is elections. Listen to what Sid Powell had to say about elections, and then ask yourself, is there any chance that a guy like Lindsey Graham, a Zionist gay stooge, who may have some MK Ultra in his background, he was a military guy, a Zionist gay stooge for Israel, is there any chance that he's doing his events and the people going to his events are booing him off the stage? Got elected easily in South Carolina. Does that make sense to you? His own party coming to his events. We played those clips over and over and over again. It wasn't just once, it was multiple times. He would stand up in front of the people of South Carolina and they would boo so loud you couldn't hear him speak. These are Republicans. And he wins an election easily. No, it's just, come on. Let's just use our common sense for just a minute. Here is Sid Powell, clip number 14.
Destroying evidence right and left in Georgia, in Cobb County, Gwinnett County, Fulton County. It's everything from shredding ballots to wiping machines and replacing servers. All these machines should have been impounded the day after the election and reviewed for forensic analysis.
We have statistical evidence, we have mathematical impossibilities. It's simply impossible for hundreds of thousands of votes to suddenly accrue to Mr. Biden. You have that incident on tape, which is abject evidence of fraud. Nobody hides ballots under a table. Mr. Raffensperger was flat out lying. Anybody who can read body language can tell that. There should be a criminal investigation of his and his secretary's finances around the time of the $107 million Dominion contract that was suddenly awarded in Georgia when they didn't need a new system. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. You know, they lied to get rid of the observers in the State Farm Center that night. Then they pull out the ballots they had segregated under the table that's just happened to turn out 98% for Biden. Yes, right. They do it after telling everybody to leave.
It makes me wonder where in the world is our FBI and our Department of Justice.
There is none.
And I'm frankly very concerned that this entire system was originated likely by the CIA and maybe even given to Venezuela years ago or seeded in different places that it wound up with Venezuela, which started the Smartmatic and Dominion companies. And the only reason they have a Boca Raton address here in the United States is to try to make them seem like a United States company. But they're not. They're owned, run, and were organized and created by Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez with his dirty money and the dirty money of the Cuban communists to ensure he won every election after it was used. One of our witnesses was a direct, firsthand, personal observer of all of that, received the briefings on how it all worked, saw it work in the control room for election after election, and has given us detailed affidavit to explain it all.
That's good, Isaiah.
There's people who say there's no...
And who's at fault? China. I got a guy coming on who's going to tell me how dangerous China is. He'll be on, I think, August the 4th, if I'm not mistaken. So he'll come in and I'll challenge him a little bit because I think China is, if China is the enemy of America, then everybody in our government should be tried for treason.
Yep.
We're tied to China so much, I can't even tell where China ends and the United States begins. We're so tied to China. They make everything for us, everything for us. We're bringing in 600,000 students to infiltrate our schools, and they're the enemy. I mean, you just have to be
like there was, if we think about,
believe these things. You have to be insane. In my opinion, you have to be insane.
You remember when 9/11 happened, wasn't there kind of and I think even President Trump put a moratorium, temporary moratorium on immigration from Muslim countries.
Seven Muslim countries can have immigration, right? So you can't get Muslim immigration, but yet the Chinese stole an election and we're inviting 600,000 students in, and we're making all of our goods in China. It makes perfect sense, Isaiah. I just don't know why
that's
I can't
so logical, right?
I can't figure out the system, how it works exactly. You have your sworn enemy who's stealing elections from you, China, which is what Donald Trump says. That group is sending 600,000 of their spies into American schools. We don't see any problem with that. We don't see any problem with Elaine Chao's father being tied to the Communist Party in China. His daughter, Elaine Chao, married to who? Mitchell McConnell, the turtle. And he runs up to the top of the government on the Republican Party side as the leader. Well, he was the top man in the Senate for the Republicans. This makes sense. And she becomes the transportation secretary for the Republicans. And her father is tied to China as a shipping magnate. Yeah, I mean, I keep telling this to people. I'm like, how can you make sense of this? They can't, because they don't know anything about it. If you were to walk on the streets and tell this to people, they would look at you like you had horns in your head. They'd have no idea what you're talking about. But this is the reality of the world that we live in. Okay. Now, I got to get back to the premise of the show, and then I got to get to some advertising before my man comes in. So we'll do that. Maybe let's just run this out so we don't interrupt it. And then maybe 8 minutes or so, Isaiah, if you'll remind me before Mr. Potash comes in with his CIA information and MK Ultra. Let's just, we'll do the advertisements then. And let's move to number 6. Now, this is Hunter Biden. I forget who this lady is that he's talking to, but they're talking about Josh Hawley. Let me give you my experience with Josh Hawley very quickly. You may or may not know. I went to a Josh Hawley fundraiser. You know who was there with Josh Hawley for the fundraiser, Isaiah? So Josh Hawley, this is when he's going up against Claire McCaskill. It was at the Doubletree Hotel in Chesterfield, Missouri. I went with my buddy Scott Cooper, Cardinals guy. He said, hey, my uncle's got some an invite. You want to go up there and see Josh Hawley speak? I said, yeah, it's right around the corner. Let's go do it. So Josh Hawley comes out and speak. You know who was the main speaker that day?
Who?
Lindsey Graham.
What?
You can't. What? You don't say.
Of
course, Lindsey Graham was the headliner, who now we know through Hunter Biden, everybody in Washington, D.C. knew that he was a gay man. And then he shows up to stump for Josh Hawley. Clip number 6, Hunter Biden speaking about Josh Hawley. Clip number 6, please.
I believe that the biggest problem in America is, in Washington, D.C. with the federal government is it not the oligarchy.
Closet cases.
It's the closetocracy, as I call it. It is, and I'm being totally serious. And I can do a list true. because I don't know these to be true at all. But let's start with the laptop that I want to see. Well, begin with Josh Hawley.
Josh Hawley. Well, here's interesting. Here is his.
Can we do more than 3?
Yeah, we're going to go all day. Okay. Here's Josh Hawley with Harrison Butker. He's the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. And this looks like a gay engagement photo. I mean, that's really gay. Ryan, on a scale of 0 to gay, how gay is that?
Gay.
Gay, yeah. I just feel like when rubber hits the road,
so to speak. Exactly.
These two were not thinking about women. Here he is attempting to have a heterosexual kiss.
That's so...
Okay.
I can't help it. I have that sense of humor. I apologize if it bothers people, but I thought that was funny.
That's so
he's basically saying that Josh Hawley is a gay man. My experience with Josh Hawley was when I first met him, I thought he was incredibly articulate. I was very impressed by his ability to speak. When I watch him in the Senate, I think he's one of the best orators. I think when he is doing his role as an attorney and as a senator, when he's playing that role, where's my Warenberg? When he is doing, I'll give you just a little bit here.
When he's in the central casting room.
Not it. Here we go. So when Josh Hawley is on the Senate, when he's up on his little chair and he's looking down amongst the people and he's doing his thing, all I hear is this. I can't even hear what he's saying. This is all I hear. Because Josh Hawley is the lead actor. He is the Robert De Niro of the Senate. From Boatman's banking industry. From Yale. It's a big club and you ain't in it.
That's right.
And as the title of the show is, Zionism, Zionist Stooges Zionism, and MK Ultra, is Josh Hawley a part of that system? Now you got to remember, Josh Hawley is somebody that I was in favor of. I spoke highly of him. I was rooting for him. I didn't care if he was gay at the time or not. I didn't know all of these things at that particular time. When Josh Hawley heard what I was talking about on Real Talk 93.3, he would not come on our station. We couldn't. I thought I was friendly with Josh Hawley. I was raising money for him. I was trying to get Josh Hawley elected against Claire McCaskill. So I thought for sure he would want to come on the station and chop it up with me. But he would not do it. So when he wouldn't do it, we found his chief of staff. Bob Onder who is an admitted Zionist, by the way, Bob Onder. Mm-hmm. Bob Onder was having a fundraiser. I like Bob Onder. I got no problem with Bob Onder. You and I spoke to him when we were in Washington, D.C. So I asked Josh Hawley if he will come on the show. He says no. Bob Onder has, or he doesn't say no. He doesn't respond. So we go to a fundraiser for Bob Onder, and the chief of staff for Josh Hawley was at that particular event. Everybody says, "Oh, you got to talk to his chief of staff. He'll come on. He'll come on." I said, "Oh, great! If his chief of staff here, we'll do it." So I pull up to his chief of staff. Do you know his name, by the way?
Sam.
Sam. Nice young Sam. What is it? Remember?
Something.
Yeah, that's it.
I know. So it's funny. We are in a workup group where we all call each other nicknames and we don't know each other's real names. And so it's so funny. So I know him as Clapper. That's what we call him. And my name's Humpty Dumpty. And so
I don't want to know your nicknames.
Yeah,
I don't even know what's going on there, Isaiah.
Yeah. No, I don't know his last name because of that, because we worked out. And so I eventually found out his first name because of him working for Josh Hawley.
Nice, attractive, young, good guy.
Yeah, he's got a young family.
Yeah, good guy. I'm not saying anything negative about him, but when I came to him and I said, "Listen, I've been trying to get Josh Hawley on the radio show. I want to ask him about certain things." And I said, and I went to everybody and I haven't gotten anything done. And he looked at me very confidently and he goes, "We just never got to the right person." And I said, so you're the Sappa?
Saffa, S-A-F-F-A. That's right.
Saffa. That's it. I might even have him in my phone. And I said, "Well, good. So you're the right guy." He said, "I'm the right guy." I said, "Well, I would like to get him on my show at his convenience. I'm on from 9 to noon. He can come on whenever he'd like. I just want to get him in here because I have some questions for him." Never heard another word. Called him, texted him, emailed him, whatever I had to do back in the day. Yeah, completely ghosted me. Never heard another word from him. And I keep thinking to myself, why would Josh Hawley, in a friendly environment with a true conservative, which he claims to be, a true conservative, not want to come in to the #1 streamed radio station in America? I don't know if it still is, but it was at the time, where you have a big audience of grassroots conservatives, people that would be on the same page with Josh Hawley if he is who he says he is. Why would he not want to come in and chop it up with me? But he wouldn't. But guess what, Josh? We're coming to DC, baby. And we're going to stand outside of your office until you have to go to the bathroom or until you have to leave. And we are going to get in front of you and ask you some questions because I'm very curious as to why you're not saying anything about the issues of the day that actually matter. You're silent on the things that matter. Stolen elections, continual war, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which is what we originally wanted to talk to them about. They don't have any conversations about the things that matter. They want to play games. And again, I don't like when people play games, Isaiah. It just aggravates me. You know, it just bothers me so much. Games people play. Aggravates me. Okay. Let's do A5 for just a minute. I want to skip off of that because I want to get in just a couple of housekeeping notes. Where's my housekeeping? I got that too, Isaiah.
Housekeeping?
Yeah, I'm going to get that in there. I want to play with my board today. Where is it?
Housekeeping?
What is it? There it is. Here we go. It's right here.
Housekeeping.
Let's do a little housekeeping very quickly. Amendment 5. Yesterday we were at David Robertson's. You know, it was a fundraiser for him. It's getting near primary time. I emceed his event, and he was asked whether he was for or against Amendment 5. He's against Amendment 5. I think almost every person that I know within the grassroots community is against A5. I am against A5. And, you know, when you're asking people, we stood out in front of Moe's and asked people what they thought of A5. And universally, I think 5 out of the 6 said they were against it. That was just an impromptu. What do you think about A5? 5 out of the 6 people that we talked to said they were against A5. This is the elimination of income taxes in lieu of sales taxes, but you have to amend the Hancock Amendment. You have to amend the amendment, okay? Or suspend it, I guess I should say. Suspend the Hancock Amendment. And everybody, when you ask them, why aren't you for it? They all say the same thing. I don't trust this government. And I just ask my common sense thinking people out there. Let's do can we do the ABCs real fast? ABC easy as 1, 2, 3. I won't play it again. You know the song. If Mike Kehoe was complicit, along with Dave Schatz, to implement the gasoline tax with Republican leadership, a gasoline tax in the state of Missouri, would you trust the people that maneuvered around the people to get a gasoline tax implemented in the state of Missouri? Then he becomes governor of the state of Missouri, Mike Kehoe, after not debating. Would you trust that guy to put forth some form of legislation or framework that would lower your taxes? Isaiah, I got to get that McFly.
Yeah.
Remember? McFly. That's what I want to do to my Republican friends that are for it. And by the way, I got to give credit where credit is due. Doug Billings just put something out. So Doug Billings, who is on 93.3, I think he does noon to 2, if I'm not mistaken. He has come out against A5. I'm against A5. The grassroots are against A5. Even a guy that I think is kind of a Republican, you know, he is tied to the Republican Party, is against A5, and Doug Billings. And then we have this particular clip, number 13, where if you're in Missouri, real quick, A5 is the tax deal, right? This is getting rid of the income tax in lieu of sales taxes. You have to suspend the Hancock Amendment, which says you have to go to the voters if you want to raise taxes. So they go to St. County, the St. Charles County executive position, and there's 3 people running of significance, as I understand it: Bill Eigel, Jason Law, and Steve Ellman. And they go on this show with Mark Maxwell, who I kind of like this Mark Maxwell character. He asks good questions. And he asked him about Amendment 5. And here's how they answered. These are 3 Republicans. Republican leadership wants A5, but all 3 of these people, this is how they answer as to whether they are for or against A5. I thought this was fantastic. Check it out.
If you're voting yes on Amendment 5.
Oh, is there I'm neutral.
You're a voter. None of you are voting yes on Amendment 5.
I don't understand where they're going to cut the taxes and put other taxes yet.
So all 3 are apparently against A5. Can I explain why, Isaiah?
Oh, yeah.
These are good politicians, and they know that their constituents are not in favor of A5. Now, also remember, these are in St. Charles County. This is the largest conservative county in all of Missouri. So this tells you, almost as a matter of certainty, if you were to use your common sense, that A5 is going to get voted down. That doesn't mean that A5 won't pass, because we have to remember what Sidney Powell said about the elections. Just remember that. The largest conservative voting county in all of Missouri, the 3 people running for St. Charles County executive, all 3 did not raise their hand when they were asked, are they in favor of A5? Just remember that, because if it passes, your antenna should go up and go, that doesn't really make any sense. If 3 skilled politicians, Jason Law, well, yeah, even Jason Law, he's been around the political game. If all 3 of them will not raise their hand, that is because the doors that they've knocked on and the people that they have talked to have said, no on 5, we're not for A5, we don't trust this government, we've watched what they've been doing for years, we don't trust them, no chance in the world. So they're against it. But if it passes, just remember what I said. As Jake's been telling me for a long time, it's 70-30 against. Okay, just remember. Let's see how it all plays out. I say the establishment wants A5. That's what I think.
That's what David Robertson was telling me last night. He said, talking to the people at the door, it's they're not excited about it.
I haven't really talked to anybody in, well, I know the people that are for it. Those are the Missouri Promise people. That's Freedom Principle, Americans for No Prosperity. Those people, they are all heavily for it, and they're spending $1 bazillion trying to convince people to vote for it. But the politicians that are knocking on doors, they're saying, my constituents are not for A5. I'm not for A5. I would never in a million years. And that could be, I could be wrong on the issue, Isaiah. I admit that these legislators could be better than the next, or the ones who, I don't know, but there is no chance in the world.
You got to take a stance though, at some point, right?
I just would never give these people any kind of trust. They haven't earned it. You have to earn trust, Isaiah. I mean, every 8-year-old knows that. You have to earn trust before it's given. These people have not earned trust, and therefore I would have nothing to do with their schemes. That's just me. All right. And now I want to play this. Got to get this in there, because as we were talking about Zionist stooges and MK Ultra, can we go back to, so Candace Owens, whether you like her, don't like her, this is not the point. I believe in my heart of hearts, if somebody said, Rob, your life depends on it, you must determine the reason and the motive that Charlie Kirk was assassinated in broad daylight. You have to determine the reason. And if you get the reason wrong, your life is over. So it's crunch time for Rob, and I have to make a decision on why Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Was it because he was against transgenderism, or was it because he was speaking out against the nation state of Israel and big Jewish donors? And I would not hesitate even for the slightest, not for 1 second would I hesitate, and I'd say because he was speaking out against the war with Iran and against big Jewish donors. It wouldn't take me but a split second, and I would make that determination, and I would still be alive today, Isaiah, I do believe. Okay? So Candace Owens is now starting to put out text message threads between herself and Charlie Kirk. Pay attention to this one, because I think it aligns with the things that he said publicly. So if you say, Rob, she could be doing anything, she could be making up, I guess that's possible. I think that'd be a stupid thing to do, because you can find things out.
I mean, she was very close to Charlie.
They were obviously very close. And number 2, the things that are in the text messages to her and from her align with his public statements.
Yeah.
Almost identical to his public statements. Here she goes. This is Candace Owens sharing a text thread with Charlie Kirk. Tell me what you think.
I apologize for saying genocide is always wrong. Charlie said, good. He continues. I've told all the Jews recently to go to hell who try and tell me to stop. I said, it's unreal. It's an implicit threat. He said, BTW, did the flight work out okay? I was 40 weeks pregnant, and he was helping me to find a plane last second. And I said, by the way, you are featured in my Tucker interview that just dropped. I defended you hardcore. I forgot to mention that he just dropped it. And he said, thank you. We are on the same team. Screw these people. And I said around the 20-minute mark. And he said, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. Very few of us are willing to stand up to the cabal right now. I said, thank you so much for having my back. You know, I have yours. I'm really so disgusted by what they did to you. Years of service to the pro-Israel cause, and no one cares, treating you like you are only as good as what you can do to them. The plane worked out great today. Thank you so much. It made all the difference. This pregnant, LOL, I'm literally 40 weeks. And he wrote, absolutely, we are on the same team. People are waking up, and it is finally happening. He continued, it is so transactional. I am repulsed by it. For years, I was called a Jewish shill. And now they say I am a Hamas agent. Screw them. The game has changed. So that's a snippet into what began conversations between me and Charlie over the course of, I guess only a year and a half later, he would be dead. Just over a year and a half later, he would be murdered, about Zionism and how they were moving in on speech, how they were bullying us. We have conversations about Seth Dillon, all the players who were involved, and trying to gaslight us by name calling us, and very clearly we're coordinating with one
That's good,
another.
Isaiah. Now, remember, if you're paying attention to the political environment, they hate Candace Owens. It's uncomfortable how much people hate Candace Owens. They despise everything that she says and does, but they love Charlie Kirk. And I just asked those people, maybe you've been brainwashed. Just maybe. Charlie Kirk spoke out against going to war with Iran on his show. Now, you got to remember, I know this because his show was after mine. He was on the same station. He was right after me. I got to hear his show every day driving home. He was against the war with Iran. As soon as he's assassinated, what happens? We bomb Venezuela so that we have secure oil, and then we start going into Iran. Where's my ABCs? ABC. It's not that.
How much of a stink do you think he would make about Section 219?
Of course, that's what I mean.
Exactly.
So and the reason Charlie Kirk is so important in the story of what's going on in America is the political power that this man had. There are many people that believe that Charlie Kirk would eventually be president of the United States. Those people still think we have legitimate elections, because that would have never happened. Just FYI, not in the system we have now. But there are a lot of people that thought Charlie Kirk would be president because he had so much political sway in this country. My own son, my family, even my daughter, who I did, had an issue with. I didn't even know that she was paying attention to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk had incredible political power, and he was assassinated at a time when he was speaking out against Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, Zionism, and big Jewish donors. And he was saying it publicly. And when he said they used to call me a shill for Israel, I'm one of them. I'm one of them. When he went on the Patrick Bet David show and talked about October 7th, and he said, Patrick, I have been to the fence that blocks that borders Gaza and Israel, and they have a soldier every 10 feet. It is implausible to think that the Hamas could bulldoze or come in hang gliders into Israel and camp for 6 hours, slaughtering their people.
A rocket can't even land in Israel because of the Iron Dome.
Exactly, unless it was allowed, is basically what he was saying on the Patrick Bet David show. And I played that. I'm like, wait a minute, is Charlie Kirk coming around to where we've been at here for a little bit? Is Charlie Kirk coming around? And then what happened? About, I can't remember, I don't want to give the exact dates, but I reported this on my show as well. About 4 or 5 days later, 2 weeks, it was very, in a very short amount of time, he came out and made a public statement apologizing, saying that he stands with the Jewish people. You think that's not pressure? You don't think it's pressure when his initial thought process is it was allowed to happen, that it was a false flag, and then immediately comes out on his own website and has to apologize? You don't think that's pressure? I think it's pressure, Isaiah. I think it's a lot of pressure this young man was dealing with. One more I got to play, and then we'll get into the advertisements. The next one that I want to play, and did you send the link to John Potash?
Yep.
Okay. The next one I want to play for you is the 10th Amendment Center. We just did a show recently said, is the law just? There's no justice within the law. This is something that I didn't recognize either, because the conditioning in my mind was this was a jury of your peers, the most just system that there is. And then I watched the elections. The elections are what turned my mind around about it. When they said you cannot get standing for stolen elections, when everybody that kind of watched what happened in the 2020 elections recognized something wasn't right. So it goes to the courts. And you think, well, once it gets to the courts and the evidence is put out there, everything's going to be great. Well, nobody had any standing. You couldn't get anything in front of the courts, including the Supreme Court of the United States. That was number one. Then COVID. Then COVID goes to the courts. And you have Amy Coney Barrett, who was the darling of the far right, Amy Coney Barrett. And she said that the Indiana University had every right to mandate that their students take a experimental vaccine for COVID. And I thought, well, this is what Amy, the genius, Amy Coney Barrett, this is her genius. This is in her mind that the original construct of the Constitution would allow the government, which is what let me slow it down and explain it this way. The Constitution is a protection against the government from its people. That's what the Constitution is. The Constitution is protection for the people against their government. That is what the Constitution is about. But Amy Coney Barrett, in all of her wisdom on the Supreme Court of the United States, nominated by Donald Trump, said that Indiana University had every right to mandate an experimental vaccine with no safety record on its young students. And it dawned on me that it's all, and I'm going to say this word one more time, it's all bullshit. Because no competent person, you can sway it with your law and your nonsense however you want to. There is no competent person in America that would believe that a state college could mandate vaccines into its 19 and 20-year-old body of their student body. This is just impossible. Because if the Constitution is to protect you from your government, and your government runs a con on you and says, we're going to stick a needle into your arm with a foreign substance that has no safety record that anybody can find, and a Supreme Court judge says, yes, this makes perfect sense to me, then you know that the system is not right. Here is the 10th Amendment Center, again, coming out with things that we have been talking about now on this show for quite some time. There is no such thing as justice within our laws. There might be on certain issues, but when it gets down to brass tacks and you want to take on your government, the courts are there to protect those people. And if you don't believe me, ask Jeffrey Winehouse. Ask Jeffrey Winehouse. Shot 4 times, twice in the chest, twice in the forehead, videotaped the entire thing. He's in prison for shooting the cops when he never took a shot. Nobody even said that he took a shot. A man that was assassinated in broad daylight and videotaped it with his own watch sits in prison. He's been there for 13 years. He's on a 30-year sentence for something that we have videotape of. It's just the most amazing thing. There is no such thing as justice when you touch power in this country. And that, as they say, Isaiah, is a fact.
That's the fact, Jack! That's a fact, Jack!
Clip number 4, please.
Is often but the tyrant's will, and always so when it violates the rights of an individual. Thomas Jefferson warned us, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's constitutional, moral, or just.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Kurt says that when I play the ABC song, it comes in way too loud. I'll turn it down. I didn't know that, Kurt. I apologize. It's blowing people's eardrums out when I play ABC. But I like the song. Got to hear it loud. Okay. Let's do some, John, you can hear us. Let me do some advertising very quickly, and then we'll bring you in. First thing we want to talk about, as always, is peopleslobbymo.com. Again, if you're listening to the show, you're a political savant. You understand what's going on in this world. You're starting to ask questions about what you think you know. People's Lobby Missouri is designed to create pressure on the government through a marketing strategy. I come from a marketing background. When I worked at Skechers, one of the greatest marketing companies on planet Earth. And as they say, we're a shoe company. We're a marketing company that sells shoes. Shoes are the vehicle for our marketing schemes. Isaiah comes from a marketing background. We have 2 great marketers that work on AI commercials for us. We are a marketing organization that is going to put pressure on the system to get them back into a constitutional framework, which right now they are not. The Missouri government is not adhering to the Constitution. There's one person that, maybe 2 people, Mike Moon and Bryant Wolfen, and the rest, they could care less about the Constitution. They don't even care. They don't pay attention to it, even know that it exists, in my humble opinion. peopleslobbymo.com. If you could sign up, great. If you could donate, even better. We need money. We need money for billboards. We need money for commercials. We need money to organize. We need money. Be a part of it. peopleslobbymo.com. peopleslobbymo.com. One more time for the people in back who may not have heard me clearly. peopleslobbymo.com. Sign up, donate. We're asking for small donations. You don't have to get crazy with us. We're talking about $5 or $10. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's a secure site. Everything's going to be just fine. $5 or $10 a month. Something that would just slip out of your pocket and you wouldn't even chase it if the wind was blowing. Can change the game in the state of Missouri. peopleslobbymo.com. Join up. Join the family. You're going to watch amazing things happen over the next 3 or 4 years with People's Lobby Mo. I always make these predictions, Isaiah, that makes me have to live up to them. peopleslobbymo.com. All right. Let's get to some of our advertisers, my favorite advertisers. Let's start with rackcustomcoatings.com, rackcustomcoatings.com. This is my good friend, Rich McQuay. Had lunch with him twice this week, Isaiah. Rich McQuay, this is a locally owned, family-owned operation since 2001, so 25 years in the flooring business. He does epoxy. And what's amazing about it, for me at least, is what it can do for your garage. If you have a man cave, if you have beautiful new cars and such, and you don't want to spend a ton of money on your garage, but you don't like the oil stains, it looks kind of funky. You walk out of your beautiful home and you got all this nonsense in your garage floor. Clean it up with some epoxy. It'll look beautiful. Great curb appeal for your garage. If you have for hangars, industrial spaces, schools, anything of that nature, they can make this flooring look absolutely spectacular. This guy's an artist, does terrific work. You can check out his website, rackcustomcoatings.com, or you can reach out to him at 636-398-5040, rackcustomcoatings.com. And then we have ECS Roofing and Exteriors. Pull that up for us real fast, Isaiah. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. This is our general contractor. This is Larry Evans. He's putting out some great commercials of his own recently. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. I say best in class. This guy's been around for 30 years putting roofs on, and he is just exactly what we want. We want somebody who's conscientious. We want somebody who gives a great price. We want somebody who is loyal, and we have it with Larry Evans, ECS Roofing and Exteriors. There it is. Roofing, siding, decks, gutters, garage doors, custom exterior metal, you name it, they'll take care of it, whether it's residential or commercial, new construction, storm damage, free licensed inspections. This is the guy. One of the great tools that ECS Roofing provides is the knowledge of insurance. Most roofing companies will tell you that the insurance companies are going to work with you, despite the fact they have no idea if that's true. They want to get you into their system. They want to continually solicit you. It happened to me. He says, Rob, if I tell you that the insurance companies are going to work on your roof, it's because they are. I'm in that game. I know what's going on. I'm a licensed insurance inspector. I know the gig. I know how it works. I handle both for you. ECS Roofing and Exteriors, 314-486-3567. One more time, 314-486-3567. You can check out their work at ECS Roofing and Exteriors on Facebook. Let's get one more in. Let's do Carrington Financial. This is our financial advisor. So if you have your money and there's an insurance advisor, or you have it in a big firm that you like and so forth and so on, I just say, please get a second opinion, a third opinion. It doesn't matter to me, but you got to get the opinion of Rick Babitz. When he comes on the show on Tuesdays, you can see how intelligent this guy is. He knows finance backwards and forwards. He knows the history, he knows the currencies, he knows the crypto. He knows how the game is played. It is Rick Babitz, yourcaringadvisor.com. You can reach him at 314-671-0525. He came to the event last night. He spoke for a little bit. Biblical Principles with Your Money. My man, Rick Babitz, 314-671-0525. Again, yourcaringadvisor.com. All right, Isaiah, let's bring in John Potash. I just cannot wait to hear what he has learned about MK Ultra, because as I've been saying for a long, long time, this entire subject fascinates me. And there he is, John Potash. John, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Good. It's good to be here with you, Rob. Thanks for having me.
I got to figure out how you got into this line of questioning and starting to understand about MK Ultra. We talk about it on this show. I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and we really started off maybe about 6 or 8 months in to discussing MK Ultra. One of the things that really caught my attention about MK Ultra was the Charles Manson story and the book by Tom O'Neill, which I'm sure you've read.
Great book.
He tied it to Charles Manson. I'm somebody that was writing college papers about Charles Manson, high school papers about Charles Manson, because I was fascinated with the entire story. Mm-hmm. What have you learned? Let's start with the Charles Manson right off the bat. Sure. Do you see a connection, as Tom O'Neill did, between Jolly West, Charles Manson, and LSD, and the entire story behind the Manson family murders?
Yeah, definitely. I included his book in my latest film, CIA Drugs Are Us. It's a Drugs as Weapons sequel is the subtitle, because it's a sequel to my original book. My original film, Drugs as Weapons Against Us, the CIA War on Musicians and Activists, which is based on my book, Drugs as Weapons Against Us. And I think that he's right on target. He did incredible research for 20 years, and he found the papers. I think his best finding, his key finding, which he usually mentions in interviews, is his finding of the papers, of the documents and the letters between the CIA director, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the MK Ultra CIA director, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, and Dr. Jolyon West. And so those letters back and forth for many years just show the clear connection that Dr. West was working for the CIA MKUltra program when he carried out his work with Charles Manson. And so Tom O'Neill found that Charles Manson and his girls and some young guys were coming to that clinic regularly, sometimes daily, but at least weekly for many months, for at least 6 months or so. And so, the best evidence is that Dr. Jolyon West's specialty, which was hypnosis and the use of drugs and hypnosis to get people to do what you want them to do, was used on Charles Manson and the girls and the young guys that came to that clinic regularly. They were ostensibly going there, to treat STDs,
right?
So other research, I show the evidence of other researchers like Dave McGowan, who wrote a book called Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, and a few other very good books that overlap the research that I did on MKUltra. And he found parallels between a key character named Vito Pelekis, who was the first cousin of Barbara Sears Rockefeller. And so the Rockefeller Foundation, the Rockefeller family, funded MKUltra when Congress tried to stop funding of MKUltra activities. The Rockefeller Foundation and some other foundations stepped in. And so it's just the best evidence is that this Vito Pelekis he was a dance instructor in the Laurel Canyon area of Los Angeles, where they would take these young girls, and a woman named Pamela DeBar wrote a kind of pretty famous, like the most famous, I would say, roadie book called With the Band. So I don't know if you've heard of that before, but
I know this a little bit about the Laurel Canyon story, but I'm sure you'll tie this together for me.
Yeah. So Pamela DeBar just presented what her observations were, and what her observations were that when some of the band members went to these, sex and drug parties in the Laurel Canyon scene, she noticed that like two key people had these sex and drug parties. One, like Vito Pelekis, was organizing his dancers to go to these sex and drug parties, and he was also organizing these dancers to go to these new bands, LA bands that were popping up and becoming instant top 10 favorite bands in that scene, and they all happened to live in this Laurel Canyon scene. But anyway, so they're having these sex and drug parties. So they lure a lot of celebrities there with the orgies they were having and girls running around naked, and they were introducing them to all kinds of exotic drugs, heroin, cocaine, as well as LSD, acid. And so I argue that was a common MKUltra technique. They'd run parties like that, actually in the 50s, believe it or not, but in the 60s, of course, they got bigger. But some of the MKUltra scientists first ran them earlier in the 50s. And so here they were doing that, and who else comes to these parties later in the 60s is Charles Manson and his girls. And these girls were, acting like prostitutes. They were likely, hypnotized, and they had used drugs on them to get them to do what they did. They were runaway girls that whose minds were messed with. And so Vito Pelekis was using a bunch of techniques, and Dave McGowan outlined the evidence for all the different techniques that Vito Pelekis used and Charles Manson used to get these, girls and some young guys to do their bidding. And these, some of these things were like sodomizing a 13-year-old girl in front of the rest of the group.
Roman Polanski.
Yeah. So, it's not clear. I don't have the clear evidence that Roman Polanski raped a 13-year-old girl, but he was definitely accused, obviously, of having sex with underage girls. The difference is with Polanski is, it was offensive and horrible for him to, do that. But there's evidence that was actually more willing than it was with Manson and Vito Pelekis. Vito Pelekis and Manson were raping these girls in front of, the other women and scaring them into submission. And they were using the drugs, and they were using the hypnosis, because Dr. Jolyon West was a master in hypnosis. The evidence is that Manson himself was taught hypnosis, and that Manson and Vito Pelekis brought loads of LSD and other drugs to these scenes and had all of his cohorts, kind of, the people around them using acid, LSD, and at the same time, they were trying to stay away from any drug use themselves to keep a clear head, to keep orchestrating what they wanted to orchestrate. And so there was a number of different techniques like that depersonalized a lot of these young, girls and some guys, and had them doing their bidding. And so here they are, Vito Plekis' girls and Manson's girls and some guys, as I say, all at the same place. Now, at least one of the guys Tom O'Neill found was a guy named, I think it was, I forget his first name, but Reeves was his last name. And O'Neill said that Reeves was a CIA undercover agent there to help orchestrate what was going on. And he was, clearly around the Spahn Ranch where the Manson girls and guys were hanging out at one point in the later 60s. And but he says he died before O'Neill got to interview him. So Tom O'Neill doesn't talk about Vito Plekis. Dave McGowan talks a lot more about Vito Plekis than I do also in my book, Drugs as Weapons Against Us. But there's so many parallels. They were at the same scenes. They were doing the same things. It's just that Vito Plekis was clearly connected to the wealthiest families, obviously the Rockefellers, and being a first cousin of Barbara Sears Rockefeller, while Manson appeared to be, a little bit more of a orchestrated stooge of this scene, because he was sexually, he was raped as a young guy, like a young kid in foster homes. He was regularly raped and abused, according to biographies of him. And so when he got to a certain age, and he was also in a prison where they were doing MK Ultra experiments, to, like you might have heard that Whitey Bulger also experienced some of this in prison. Yeah, and so Manson, Whitey Bulger, a number of others that I believe I show the evidence of were used as tools for the U.S. intelligence. But Manson was the clearest because he carried out so many crimes before anyone ever came down on Manson. And one of the clearest crimes was, of course, the murder of Sharon Tate, who happened to be, the wife of the director you just named, Roman Polanski's wife. Now, Polanski was a kind of a Holocaust survivor, and so his mind, he had gone through so much trauma in his growing up experience that he was, he wasn't really. He wrote some activist films. He actually wrote some films like Chinatown, and some films about LA and all that uncovered, some corruption in society. But his wife was the bigger, like, anti-war activist and the pro-civil rights activist. So Sharon Tate organized with Jane Fonda, with Warren Beatty, with Donald Sutherland, with Mama Cass Elliot, actually, with Gene Seberg. Yeah, Mamas and the Papas, Gene Seberg. And they all were formed a group called the Peace and Freedom Party that was against the Vietnam War. And some of them called themselves the White Panther Party in alliance with the Black Panthers to stop the brutality that was going on, like the clear, like, fatal, assassination attempts against people like Geronimo Pratt, who was the Los Angeles Black Panther leader at one point, and other Black Panthers. And so they were just really intensely, intense activists. Marlon Brando actually came out and spoke for the Black Panther Party after Martin Luther King's assassination. And so here you have this Charles Manson and his followers, with a CIA undercover agent Reeves is hanging out with them, and they're go into Sharon Tate's home and kill everyone there. Murder everyone, murder Sharon Tate, and then they Tom O'Neill pointed out that they took her blood and wrote like "death to pigs."
Right.
And Tom O'Neill found CIA documents stating that they had formulated fake letters to send between the Panthers and the Peace and Freedom movement, saying like the letter actually was from some ally. He called himself an ally of the Panthers and the Peace and Freedom movement, but he said the Panthers are looking to line up all whites against the wall and kill them. It doesn't matter if you're so-called, ally of the Black Panthers. You're all getting lined up. And so they wrote those fake letters to him. And then they had their plan in some of these FBI documents that they're, of what they're going to do and with those letters and and that's what ended up happening. At first, it was thought, because the pigs on the wall quote, they thought it might be the Black Panthers that actually killed, that was the first accusations. And so they, almost set that up, but then some, honest cops or honest investigators really, finally put the finger on some of the Manson family and nabbed them. But originally there was all kinds of attempts to, he should have been arrested for other murders. There was other murders before that.
Remember, he shot the Black Panther. That was the whole story behind it. If you remember, as Manson shot a Black Panther member, and then that was he thought they were going to be coming after him. This is the way it's depicted.
Yeah. So there was, some interesting little setups attempted before that, right? And they were trying to pretend, a lot of different things rivalries were going on and different things were happening, and this is what was happening. But whatever it was clear that the FBI, U.S. intelligence, and the CIA were trying to set up. They did not. It was they fight for people's opinions. They fight to control our hearts and minds. And the people that can oppose them best are celebrities, musicians, number one, because they can reach our hearts and our minds with their lyrics. And number two is actors and actresses who reach our hearts and minds with just their portrayal in films. And so they were really worried about all these top actors coming out against the Vietnam War for the Panthers. And once they set this up, they were successful in scaring most of these actors out of their activism, because it was they were scared to death. They didn't know exactly what happened and why it happened, but they were very scared.
Tom O'Neill makes the argument that the reason they wanted to helter skelter and freaking out all of society with the Tate LaBianca murders was to stop the hippie movement. He makes that argument that people in that era, especially young people, college students, were not for the Vietnam War. They were vehemently opposed to the Vietnam War, and there was a lot of talk about kind of exiting society, sex, drugs, rock and roll, get out into rural life, create a life for yourself, get away from the man. Do you subscribe to that opinion?
So the only way I differ from Tom O'Neill, I really respect him and did great work, but calling it the hippie movement is the opposite of what was really desired. It was really I believe he should have said countering the activist movement, because they're really not the exact same thing there. And that's the problem is what MK Ultra wanted to do is they wanted to equate the hippie movement with the activist movement, but there were two different things. And so Dave McGowan points this out, and I pointed out in my book, and we were doing our research at the same time. He was about 5 years older than me. I'm 60 years old. He was about 5 years older than me. And so he came out a year before I came out with my book. He came out with his book, and he came out with Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon. And so Covert Ops, and other things in the scene was the subtitle. I forget the exact subtitle, but so basically we both found I kind of focused a little bit more on the San Francisco movement and the New York area and the New York area. He focused more on the LA area, but in the LA area, he really, because that's where he lived, he really dissected Laurel Canyon and all that happened there. And what he found is that they were trying to get all these civil rights activists, like Freedom Summer activists, from New York City and and different other places, that went and supported Martin Luther King and just the anti-war movement in general that was budding and growing around the 1960s with the Vietnam War growing. He says they were trying to divert them into the hippie movement, in LA through this fake Laurel Canyon scene where they got all these musicians that were came from family, like the wealthiest families and the families of high military officers. And so it's interesting that the mom and papas was one person who didn't know any better, Mama Cass Elliott, who happened to go to my college, and so I heard a little bit about her, when she was younger in college. But she didn't know any better and had a great voice and was drafted into this group, Mamas and the Papas. But the real founder of the group was Papa John Phillips, Papa John Phelps was married to a descendant of President Adams, a woman named Susie Adams, and his father was a naval officer, I believe. He was in the Naval Academy himself. And this is typical of most of these musicians in these bands, or the ones that founded these bands, is they either came from like David Crosby. David Crosby's comes from Van Cortlandt, Rensselaer families, and Van Cortlandt Park is like I think about 1,000 or 2,000 acre park in the Bronx of New York. It's like this incredibly wealthy family and so this is the history of many of these Laurel Canyon scene stars. Most of them, and McGowan lists all of their histories in his book. He named, I think he listed the history of about 30 or 40 at least of the top 10.
Really?
Yeah, and their family history.
That's hard to dismiss as a coincidence.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Yeah, right. And they're all in this little area of Laurel Canyon. It's not a big area, and it's not like Los Angeles is big, but Laurel Canyon is not big. It's a small area, but either way. So, and
I want to move you too, because there's so many things I want to get to.
No problem.
What about Chapman? Because when I was doing research on it, but not at the level I wasn't looking to write a book. I was looking to weave a story together. And I understand that Jolly West was the court-appointed psychologist for Jack Rubenstein. You have the connections to Charles Manson. You have the connections to Sirhan. So as I say, well, wait a minute. If the CIA was involved with mind control, and you have a court-appointed psychologist, Jolly West, who, as you said, was writing letters back and forth between Sid Gottlieb, this doesn't take a real genius to figure out what's going on here. And in the book, Chaos by Tom O'Neill, he says that Jolly West says that he's perfected the technique to plant memories in the human mind and to take memories out of the human mind. Now, I don't know how that would be done, but that would certainly make sense that if you want to have an assassin, if you will, who's not going to speak, all you got to do is have the assassin commit the crime. Jolly West comes in, he creates his magic, and then all of a sudden you're confused. You don't even know what you did that day, which is what Sirhan, right? If you go to the parole boards and watch Sirhan, he goes, I have no recollection of any of these things. So do you tie all these things together? Do you see a common thread?
I do. Yeah. So in my film, I have the there's a psychiatrist. It's like a CIA psychiatrist who admits that with enough drugs, and sometimes they use psychedelic drugs like acid, sometimes they use psychohypnotic drugs, and different drugs they've used with hypnosis and enough time. He says when recording that you can get someone to do just about anything, including kill someone. And so he says that this guy William Bryant, a CIA hypnotist. And then it was found that two prostitutes that regularly serviced him said that he admitted to them that he had Sirhan. He hypnotized Sirhan to kill Robert Kennedy. So with Chapman, you see the same thing going on. MK Ultra was working with that Hawaiian hospital where Chapman was at one point in time, and then was working there after being a patient there in the mental hospital there. And so a police officer, Atlanta police officer, was the one that trained him to be a marksman. Chapman to be a marksman, to be able to shoot and kill John Lennon.
Really?
He then gave him the same Atlanta police officer then gave him the hollow point bullets with which to kill John Lennon. And then, but a new book by Philip Strongman, who's a veteran British rock biographer, wrote a book after the first great book on John Lennon was by Fenton Bressler, who was a British attorney. They call them barristers. And he also was a weekly columnist for the daily newspaper in London, and on crime, reporting. And so he wrote this book, Who Killed John Lennon. He found that Chapman was like all the techniques that CIA would use to brainwash someone were used on Chapman. He found that he had used enough LSD to make him highly suggestible. And that's why what I was getting to before about the hippie movement's different than the activist movement is that the hippie movement was getting a lot of these activists to use LSD and hurt their minds, not do their best work, the best, anti-war and civil rights activist work. And that's the difference. So they were trying to divert people from their activism into the hippie movement to turn on, tune in, drop out, as Timothy Leary would say. And Timothy Leary was admitted being a CIA undercover agent since 1963. And so with Chapman, though, and Sirhan, there's evidence on both of them that, again, Fenton Bressler found that they used the techniques of CIA, mind control techniques to get him to do what he did. And then a new biographer named Philip Strongman came out with a book after Fenton Bressler. And he said he agreed with everything Fenton Bressler said about the CIA and the use of Chapman to, assassinate John Lennon. But he added that they also had another CIA undercover agent named Jose Perdomo. His full name is Jose Sanjarnas Perdomo, because it's like John Smith in Cuba. Jose Perdomo are both very common names. But so the Castro regime has his picture, like mugshot, in Cuba, because he was part of the invasion of Cuba back in the early 1960s. This guy, and then when that failed, he became a hitman for the CIA. And so Jose Sanjarnas Perdomo becomes a doorman for the Dakota apartment building where John Lennon lived that night. And so he was obviously the backup shooter. And the best evidence is that in case Chapman Mark David Chapman wasn't successful at murdering John Lennon, he fired the backup shots to make sure John Lennon was murdered that night.
Well, that's kind of the same thing with Robert F. Kennedy, right? You have Sirhan makes the shot, but misses all the shots, and then you have, was it Caesar?
Right. There was a movie. Yeah, there was a movie that just documented so many shots coming out. There's an audio recording of the incident that said there was more shots than Sirhan's gun would have had in it. And then I have in my films, Drugs as Weapons Against Us, and the newest film, CIA Drugs Are Us, a film of Thomas Noguchi, the coroner, saying, okay, we found that the bullet came from within an inch of the back of the ear of Robert Kennedy, Jr., Robert Kennedy, the presidential candidate that was about to win the Democratic primary and was thought to be going to be the next president. Right. After he won that California primary. And so then they interviewed a journalist who was in that pantry where it happened, who said that he saw that Sirhan got no closer than about 2 feet from Kennedy. So it couldn't have been his gun that murdered Robert Kennedy. It had to be that security guard who was right behind Kennedy, Eugene Thane Caesar. The journalist says he saw that security guard take his gun out and shoot it. He couldn't see exactly, where the gun was, but it wasn't Sirhan. He didn't believe that, made the fatal shot. And so that Caesar was hired, whole security service that was hired that night was actually started by a CIA undercover agent who was found, or at least a former CIA agent, they say, and really no agents are former CIA.
Exactly.
Unless they're whistleblowers, right? And so, the best evidence is that Caesar is the one that fired the fatal shot. And Kennedy, when he was falling, even grabbed the guy's tie, which was a clip-on tie, and pulled it off as he was falling. And you could see a tie right next to him in the photograph of him lying on the ground, like a famous photograph of Robert Kennedy lying on the ground dying. And it was Caesar's tie, that came off, that he grabbed to just point out who had done it to him, who must have done it to him.
Incredible. I got to. The next one I'm going to ask you: did you find any relation to John Hinckley, the man who shot Reagan? Did you see anything with that? Because he seemed like a very strange guy. He's attached to the Bush family. Bush family goes back to the CIA, and I just always wondered, was there something going on there? Because he seems like a strange character.
I didn't study that intensely. I didn't write about that, but it's very interesting because this is the way it works. You got an oligarchical family, I'll say, because the Bush family were like members of the oligarchy.
Right.
You know, they're super wealthy, just like the Rockefeller family. And so I have in my film the fact that CIA drugs are us. I have that what happened is Rockefeller. So they got Nixon out of office with the Watergate stuff. Okay. And a great journalist named Leah Kolodny, I believe his name is, wrote a book called Silent Coup about how as bad as Nixon was on some issues, you know, with bombing Cambodia, continuing, you know, not ending the Vietnam War for, you know, until 1975 or so, and all this other stuff he did. He was actually talking to China and doing things that were a little more peace oriented, believe it or not. And they didn't like that. So it's believed that he was actually set up because that Watergate thing was small potatoes compared to what he was doing in the world in general, you know, Nixon. So they get him out of office and they get Ford into the White House, you know, President Ford.
Who's attached to Manson through Squeaky Fromme, which is another one that I never
Exactly. And so in my film, I show that vice president was Nelson Rockefeller under Ford.
That's right.
And so here, you know, Rockefellers gave to MK Ultra. They put tons of money into MK Ultra for mind control, and so they wanted some payback. You know, so they wanted some payback for that, and so they got one of the Manson family people, Squeaky Fromme, to get right in front of Ford, try to pull a trigger and kill him. And security guard just lunged and got his thumb, said he got his thumb in between the trigger, you know, and the gun, and stopped that assassination. And then there's another assassination attempt within a certain amount of months after that, where a supposedly former FBI informant gets right close to Ford and tries to assassinate him, and it's failed. You know, it fails again. Someone breaks it up before it happens. But here's 2 attempts on Ford's life, and what was the reason? Probably to get Rockefeller into the presidency, because he probably wouldn't have won the election.
Because if Reagan gets assassinated, because that was just 2 months after he took office in 1981. Exactly. It's in March of 1981 that the assassination attempt on Reagan happens from a Bush affiliate, if you will. I mean, a Bush.
Right. And so that probably the best guess is that probably was, like you say, to get Bush into the presidency, because Bush wasn't winning any elections before that.
And Reagan didn't like him, so they fought. They were supposedly enemies. And then Roger Stone says that right before the convention, some very powerful people have a meeting with Bush and Reagan, and then all of a sudden it's announced that Bush is going to be the vice president. I don't know how politics works necessarily, but those 2 men didn't like each other, and then that happens. You know, I think an inquiring mind would go, "That's very interesting." Somebody tied to the Bushes tries to assassinate Reagan after Bush was forced to be his vice president. I mean, you just look at that and go, "Wow, that's some politics going on there."
Yeah, for people that don't know, Bush was former CIA director.
That's right.
And was, you know, some people ID'd him at the Kennedy assassination, JFK assassination.
That's right. And then Bill Barr was the one that was running the information back and forth. Bill Barr, who became the attorney general tied to Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Barr was the one that was running information back and forth to the church committee on behalf of Bush. I mean, it's just amazing. Okay, I got to get to some of these other people that you were talking about. Number 1, Kurt Cobain. This is the first I've heard of it. So when I was watching, I thought about it. It was in my mind. But you're the first one that I saw talk about it. Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain. What is the background story there? How does this tie together?
So just because you mentioned the tie to Jeffrey Epstein and his intelligence. Look, let's be straight here about Epstein. So the Attorney General, in 2018. He was a former federal prosecutor down in Florida, and he said that he was asked by the Trump team when they made him Attorney General. I just skipped on his name, but that why were you so easy on Jeffrey Epstein in 2005?
Talking about Alex Acosta?
Yeah, DaCosta, right. So Alex DaCosta says, they asked him why he was so easy on Epstein in 2005 when he only just charged him with like 1 count of something. He said, because I had the evidence of all these terrible things he was doing, but my superiors told me to lay off. He's intelligence, he's above your pay grade. And so I was forced to lay off and just only, charge him with 1 count. And so he ends up becoming, of course, Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General. And but DaCosta admitted that, yeah, they told him he was intelligence. Jeffrey Epstein, you got to lay off him. And so here Epstein is. He's intelligence. He's running. He's got this black book full of loads of all the most powerful people in the world. They're all their different numbers in different locations and different homes and all. And so the manager of one of his houses, I think it was his New York home, said that he circled the top people that were directly involved in the assault of underage girls, and they were mostly men, of course, but there was one key woman, one very famous woman who was circled, and that was Courtney Love. Okay, and
really?
Yeah. And and I have that in my film. I had that coming out.
I want to correct one thing, just because my audience is very they're astute. You said Alex Acosta was AG. He was labor secretary, as I understand it. I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry.
They catch everything.
Okay.
They correct me every time if I say something wrong. They
Thank you for that. Yeah. So I know he was being interviewed for a top position in the Trump administration. Yeah. I'm sorry. So anyway, so he so here you got Courtney Love as one of the key people involved in this stuff, according to an eyewitness, the manager of the house, and he was trying to sell that to one of the one of the victims' law firms, and so the FBI the law firm told the FBI did something about that. Usually the FBI just squashes all this stuff and keeps it under covers, but it got out, it got leaked out, and a real good reporter named Nick Bryant did a good article about that. So anyway, so what was Courtney Love? Courtney Love had a bizarre life where she's her biological father said that he wasn't married to her mother, and her mother was an adopted by I believe the names were the Reese family. They were heirs to Baal Shalom. They were also heirs to uranium mining. They were incredibly wealthy, and they adopted this woman, Courtney Love's mother, and she appeared, and she admitted being abused by her alcoholic father. Her father was a bit of had a little bit of an alcohol problem, he was super wealthy, abused her. And then when Courtney Love was 5 years old or so, this woman's, Courtney Love's grandparents were so wealthy, they paid off Hank Harrison's lawyer, he said, so that he lost all rights to custody over it all. And so Rosemary Carroll is Courtney Love's mother's name, and Rosemary Carroll says that I'm sorry, her name's not Rosemary Carroll, it's Linda Carroll, but Linda Carroll says that she believes that Courtney was abused in one of her, at about 4 or 5 years old, by one of her therapists or one of her daycare places she was at. And so she admits that. Courtney Love herself says she was getting therapy from at least about 3 or 4 years old, she says in various biographies of Courtney Love. And that's a bizarre age to get therapy, okay? But anyway, she's getting therapy, and she ends up in a delinquent facility. So Hank Harrison, the father of Courtney Love, biological father, says he went into a depression after he lost all custody and all rights to see his daughter. He went into a depression, but at 13 years old, Courtney Love writes to him from a delinquent facility, a juvenile delinquent facility, and says, please get me out of here. My therapist all these years have been having sex with me, and my psychiatrist have been having sex with me, and they've also been giving me these crazy drugs and Tuinals, Secanols, and Tuinals and Secanols are listed as MK Ultra hypnosis drugs, okay? Drugs that help with mind control. And so how she named at 13 years old these exotic drugs and sent them in a letter to her dad, it was bizarre. And so he ends up just, going there, fighting for a right to get out of there, takes custody of her because the mother given up on her, apparently, Linda Carroll. And she gets out of there, but he came to find that she was already been turned into a bit of a monster. She was using drugs all over his home and prostituting herself, and leaving by 14 or 15, she was leaving needles around on the floor. She was already shooting up heroin. And his new wife just said, I can't take this anymore. We can't do this. We can't keep custody of her. So by about 16 years old, she kind of like just went out and got her own place because she had inherited some money. And so she was doing like prostituting. Apparently, now the biographies say she was prostituting for the Asian mafia. Believe it or not, these are like mainstream biographies. She says it was just live sex shows, but she called herself part of the white slave trade in Asia. Okay, that's what Courtney Love called herself in an authorized biography of herself.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah. Now she says it wasn't prostitution; it was just live sex show stuff. But another woman wrote award-winning journalist wrote a biography of Courtney Love where she got the letters of one of her old boyfriends who Courtney Love admitted prostituting herself for him just to get enough plane money to get back from an Asian country to see him again. Okay. And Hank Harrison, when he was writing a book in Ireland, she came out and visited him when she had just turned 17. And he said he saw her hooking on the streets. And he said, obviously it was embarrassing and terrible, but that's what he saw her doing. And so she came out to Ireland to see Hank, the dad, with 1,000 hits of very strong acid, according to several biographies. And so there was a guy named Stephen O'Leary who befriended Hank Harrison because Hank Harrison had originally been a manager of what became the Grateful Dead and wrote a book about the Grateful Dead. And this guy says he really likes the Grateful Dead. And Stephen O'Leary, on his deathbed, and this is back in about the early 1980s, okay, or so, when Courtney Love was 17. Anyway, so this guy ends up having sex with Courtney Love. This guy's in his mid to late 20s, Stephen O'Leary, and he has sex with Courtney Love, and then he takes her to Britain, to England, and to the Liverpool scene that was had a bunch of rising stars like Adam Ant and different Echo and the Bunnymen, if you've heard of them, former band from out of the Liverpool, London scene, Liverpool, England scene. And she starts sleeping with all these musicians and spreading the acid like candy all over the scene, this really strong acid. And that's a duplication of what was done by the assistant director of MK Ultra back in 1965, a guy named Robert Lashbrook. He, according to Ernest Hemingway's editor who wrote a book about the scene, he says that that Robert Lashbrook came to that scene with tons of CIA agents and LSD and money, and said, get acid in as many musicians' hands as possible.
Now, is it to sell it or is it to change the minds? Because when I look at Cobain,
it hurts the minds of the musicians and to manipulate the musicians, because they find that LSD can make you more suggestible. And so it can weaken your emotional control and make you more suggestible. And that's why the hippie movement was trying to divert the activists away from the activism and towards the drugs, that to make them more suggestible and take them out of doing the good work they were doing, hurt their best competency. Even William S. Burroughs, who was a heroin junkie, said that he thinks psychedelics and acid makes you less competent. So someone just asked about Tavistock there. Tavistock was the British version of MK Ultra, basically. And so they were working hand in hand. Thanks for that question, Jeffrey Wilson. Anyway,
did the Beatles play a role in this?
So the Beatles, there's different arguments about the
Beatles, right? So you got Helter Skelter, the song from the Beatles.
Yeah.
You got John Lennon involved.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the most popular groups of all time.
So I show in my book, I don't get into Yoko Ono as much. I just tell the history of John Lennon, of how what happened with him. But in my film, CIA Drugs Are Us, I show the parallels. I couldn't get into heavy detail, but I show the parallels between Courtney Love and Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono came from an aristocratic family. So basically, to wrap up Courtney Love's job, according to the best evidence, was to get into Cobain's life, manipulate him, get him addicted to heroin, because he did have a massive stomach problem that opiates helped solve temporarily, But in the last year of his life, he finally found a cure to his stomach problem, and he got off of heroin. Bess Evans says he had no heroin or any drugs in his system a month or two before he died when that overdose happened. When in Rome, he overdosed on Courtney Love's Rohypnol with or roofies. So and when he was in the Rome hospital, they found no other drugs in his system except for those roofies that she obviously had put in his drink when she came and visited him in Rome when he was on his tour, European tour. And so her job, apparently, Bess Evans was to get him to promote heroin. And then when he started getting away from all drugs and was threatening to promote sobriety and promote more activism, because he was an activist, Kurt Cobain, they did him in. And so the same thing, the same pattern goes for a number of these musicians, such as John Lennon. Yoko Ono came from an aristocratic Japanese family. A journalist who was friends with them, just in about 2020, wrote a book about them, saying that Yoko Ono introduced John Lennon to heroin. John Lennon said that by 1967, he thought that acid was like ruining his mind. And he thought, I never want to do this again. He stopped for 2 years. And then Yoko Ono and Derek Taylor is tied to a bunch of these Laurel Canyon scene bands. Derek Taylor and is the band's kind of publicist, the Beatles publicist, and Yoko Ono convinced John Lennon to start tripping again, to use acid again. And after that, John Lennon said that his emotional control was so shot that he threw up for hours before he went out on stage to do a show. And so that's what it does to you. The acid, it can really hurt your emotional stability. And so that's sadly that's the pattern. And so here you got Yoko Ono kind of setting up John Lennon in a bizarre way. And I just saw this movie by May Pang, who was John Lennon's mistress for about a year or two. The Lost Weekend, a lot of people think it was just like a weekend or two. It was actually about a year or two. It was a long time that May Pang was with John Lennon, and May Pang got close with Cynthia Lennon, believe it or not, John Lennon's ex-wife, and John Lennon's son. She got close with, but May Pang said that that Yoko Ono lured John Lennon back by saying, "I have someone that can solve your cigarette problem. He can a hypnotist that can solve tobacco addiction." And
wow.
obviously that was more than just solving a tobacco addiction, because he went right back to Yoko Ono right after.
I never understood that. Never understood the Yoko Ono angle with John Lennon. Can we get into the rap for just a little bit? And then I got more things I want to get through, and then we'll talk about your books and your documentaries. First one is Tupac, because I saw mentioned in your trailer. I know Jeffrey is a buddy of mine. He's very well studied on the rap game. And, if people remember back to the era, you have the East versus the West, this whole craziness that was going on. You had a lot of cocaine and a lot of drugs floating around between, Miami, New York, and California. And there's a lot of people that think that MK Ultra played into that scene as well. You find any evidence of that?
I did, yeah. So basically, Death Row Records was started by a man named Michael Harry O'Harris, and he was the sidekick for Freeway Ricky Ross. So Freeway Ricky Ross had two people working under him, and one of them was Michael Harry O'Harris. And this came out in the book Dark Alliance by just skipped on his name. Sorry about that. The famous reporter for the San Jose Mercury News, Gary.
Gary, was it Webb?
Yeah, Gary Webb. And Gary Webb did excellent work. He was supposed to come out with, he was supposed to have front page articles when, for 2 straight weeks in the San Jose Mercury News, when all that was going on with Freeway Ricky Ross getting his very cheap cocaine to turn into crack from CIA operatives that were part of this, the Contra army fighting the Nicaraguan Sandinistas, and
giving it to the gangs, right?
Yeah. So Freeway Ricky Ross was getting it to the gangs, who were then selling it, but he was doing it nationwide. He was getting such cheap heroin, he was undercutting everyone else and turning into crack and setting it up nationwide. And so here's Michael Harry O'Harris starting Death Row Records. He's in prison. His attorney, David Kenner, actually was the real, was the guy that incorporated, that did all the paperwork, and made himself head of a umbrella company over top of Death Row Records. I think it was called Godfather Entertainment. And so Dave Kenner was really the founder of all that. But then you got Death Row Records. The head of security is a guy named Reggie Wright Jr. Reggie Wright Jr. was an LA police officer. Reggie Wright's father, Reggie Wright Sr., was head of the gang unit in Compton, one of the first areas of Los Angeles to call peace truce between the Bloods and the Crips. Okay. Tupac's family, his Black Panther extended family, was instrumental in getting these Bloods and Crips to call peace truces and turn on to activism. Tupac was enlisted to then have them to host picnics, gang peace truce picnics, to have these Bloods and Crips leaders come together, shake hands, and agree to something called the Code of Thug Life. And the Code of Thug Life was like an attempt to lessen the harm that gangs who were still dealing drugs did to their communities. And they said they signed to the code, and some of them agreed to stop drug dealing completely and turn on to activism completely. But so Tupac was helping that spread nationwide, because it's one thing to say, hey, here's some former Black Panthers that are helping organizing this, but it's another thing to take the top rapper who everyone loves, and he was the real person everyone listened to and looked to, Tupac. Now, so Tupac had decided with his revolutionary stepfather, who was in prison for life for what I call a trumped up charge around this Brinks bank truck robbery. Now, that was a real robbery, but there was no physical evidence that Mutulu was involved, and he was under heavy surveillance at that time. Mutulu had started acupuncture in the Bronx, at the Bronx Detox, to use acupuncture to solve addictions, because he had studied acupuncture. And so they decided, though, for Tupac to pretend to be a gangster in order to appeal to gangs and politicize them. Tupac was really an intellectual prodigy. He rewrote Shakespeare in his senior year of high school and started and directed it, in plays. He was a brilliant guy, and he just pretended to be this gangster, sadly enough, so people didn't really know the real him. But obviously, he was a great writer and a great director. But people think of him as a gang member. He really wasn't. Now, the East Coast West Coast thing, that was done against the Black Panthers. Fake letters going back and forth, undercover agents spreading rumors, all that stuff. You can see, yeah. So it was done against the Black Panthers. Then here they are revising it against these, rappers. Incredible. And like Tupac. And so they tried to use anything they could to divert what Russell Poole, a high-level, murder detective in Los Angeles, what he found was that his fellow police officers were at all levels of Death Row Records, dozens of his fellow police officers. And he asked his superiors, what are they doing there? And the superiors told him, you can call them, covert agents. Okay. And so here are covert agents really running Death Row Records. And so it was found. So Russell Poole was found, and Randall Sullivan wrote the book Labyrinth about this, and I repeated, of course, in my books, that he found that Death Row Records was trafficking drugs, running guns, and trying to end the Blood versus Crips, Blood Crips gang peace truce that Tupac and his extended family were trying to promote and push further and further across the country. And so Tupac was threatening literally billions of dollars worth of profit, because the CIA were the biggest drug traffickers, and cocaine trafficking from the Contras. They were caught trafficking cocaine from the Contras into the United States.
That's why Gary Webb didn't make it to the finish line.
Gary Webb sadly died before he should have. Right. And and the Clintons and the Bushes were both involved. I mean, exactly. The Bushes were involved in with Ollie North, and Bush was vice president. He was head of the National Security Council at the time. That's George Bush Sr.
Southeast Asia too. The Bush family does.
The Clintons were involved because a lot of that cheap cocaine was coming through Arkansas at the time. Yeah, so both families were involved, and they say Hillary Clinton's law firm was actually helping with the laundering of some of that, but I'm not sure about that. I just document way it was coming in through.
I've heard that rumor too. That sounds like it makes sense though.
What's that?
that I've heard those rumors too. It sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, but I can't remember if I found the clear documentation of that, but I did find the clear documentation of tons of it coming through Arkansas when Clinton was governor.
Do you see any relationship with the Trump and the Charlie Kirk assassinations? Just when as much as you know about it, you have these very odd characters that are involved in both assassinations. Does it kind of feel like there might be something going on there, or do you just no evidence to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't know enough about it to comment on it. Sorry about that.
And then the other thing I was going to ask you too, and then we'll get to your books.
Sure.
Do you see any connection, because Sid Gottlieb and Julian West, both Jewish, you have the assassination of John F. Kennedy, you have kind of a secret thing going back between Julian West and Sid Gottlieb. So you have, there's been documentation. I talk about this on my show, documentation released when they released the Kennedy files. They clearly show that James Angleton was dealing with the Israeli intelligence in a secret channel behind the scenes, which kind of makes it a little bit nervous. And then you have Zapruder, who has the film of John F. Kennedy being shot, also Jewish. Then you have Sid Gottlieb and basically back channels between Sid Gottlieb and Julian West with MK Ultra, both Jewish.
Yeah.
Do you see any relationship between this? Did you recognize any relationship or any, just something that seems a little odd here?
So what I found though is, the CIA notoriously has been, according to this top whistleblowers like Victor Marchetti, who was the highest level Catholic in the CIA at the time when he wrote his memoir. Okay, so he got to be assistant to the director of the CIA is what it was, Victor Marchetti. And so like deputy assistant director or something like that was his title. And so he wrote a book, memoir, and he said that virtually all of the top of the CIA were wealthiest white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Okay. And he said that what they do basically is they set up layers in between them and the actual assassinations.
Yes.
They put Catholic and Jewish people at layers in between them and the actual doing, so that we can look at all the other groups and blame it on them instead of this wealthiest family hierarchy. I mean, between the Rockefellers and the J.P. Morgan families and, the largest bank in the world, J.P. Morgan Chase, Rockefellers had Chase and J.P. Morgan is self-explained, but the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, the Russell family, who are the top opium traffickers, etc. There's so many of these wealthiest white Anglo-Saxon Protestant families that controlled things that they try to make it look like all these other groups were in control when they really have the most money and the most control in the United States, at least, obviously. Now there's Israeli intelligence does some of their bidding, does U.S. intelligence bidding. They brought in French intelligence to help kill, help be involved in some of these assassinations, such as of the guy that threw out the window, the CIA, Frank Olson, they threw out the window. He was part of them culture, but he was going to blow the whistle. So they made it look like a suicide, but throw him out a 10th story window. And so they bring in British intelligence. British intelligence is involved, but they try to put a layer. Now, the guy who wrote the best books on MLK assassination, William Pepper, said, he was a friend of Martin Luther King's. He said that that's the way they do things. They put in a layer in between them and the actual assassination, so people can look at either the mafia did it or a Jewish mob did it. And the Jewish mob are bad, and the mafia are bad, of course. But of course, the Catholic family of the Kennedys were good. They were doing good things, and and there was a lot of Jewish activists around the Vietnam War movement. But so it's a diversion, I believe. Not that there's some terrible Jewish people.
We happen to agree with you. That's kind of where we're coming from too. We see the exact same patterns.
Yeah. So
they're almost used as a. It's not like they're not involved, right? But there's money behind everything, and if you go to the top of the money chain that organizes everything, it leads to a different place.
Right. And so that Sidney Gottlieb had a club foot and a lisp. So he obviously didn't think he could get any other job. This is a guy who was not, in charge of everything in a very competent way, but he did do terrible things. Obviously, he was hired for his position, and a guy, John Gittinger, was the head of the psychology of the MK Ultra, and he was a little more in charge. He actually helped hire, Sidney Gottlieb, and so I have all that in my books and films.
All right. How do we find your stuff? Because I appreciate you spending the time with me, man. These are some of my favorite subjects. So
Thanks.
how do people find, first of all, your documentary? Is it YouTube and you got to purchase it on YouTube? Is that how you get to it?
So CIA Drugs Are Us is free on Tubi, and it's available on something called Folsom. It's available. Tubi is where most people see it, I believe, but it's also available on something on Amazon Prime, but through Docurama. And so you might have to get a free trial, if you don't have it or something. But Tubi is probably the best. Tubi is the best way to see CIA Drugs Are Us. Drugs as Weapons Against Us is available on Amazon Prime for free if you have Amazon Prime, or it's available like a dozen different places because it has a bigger distributor. Who
Drugs Are Weapons Against Us?
Drugs as Weapons Against Us was the first film based on my book, and then CIA Drugs Are Us, and it's just an R like Toys R Us. CIA Drugs Are Us is the sequel to Drugs as Weapons Against Us.
And then books? Do you have any books out there?
Yeah, the book is Drugs as Weapons Against Us: The CIA's Murderous Targeting of SDS, Panthers, Hendricks, Lennon, Cobain, Tupac, and Other Activists is the subtitle. And I use that subtitle so people can get around the censors. There's a lot of censorship of all my work.
Of course there is.
And thanks. But in the book, though, on Tupac alone, which I came out with as a tangent from the original project, was the FBI war on Tupac Shakur, state repression of black leaders.
Do you have a website, or if I look up your name, there it is. If I just look up your name, will it list all the books? I'm fascinated by this stuff. I'm going to get your book.
So my website. Yeah, thanks. My website is John Potash, or Potash is easier, but johnpotash.com.
Right on, man. I really appreciate your time. I'll probably have you back on as this is something that I always look for links and things and so forth. And I'm sure you've got a ton of information that's going to spark my imagination. So I'll probably get back in touch with you. I promise you we'll push your books and your videos. I'm going to watch them, so we'll report on them and we'll get our audience involved. I really appreciate you taking the time, my friend. That was very interesting material. I appreciate it.
Great talking with you, Rob.
Great talking to you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Wow. Wow. Isaiah.
Great stuff.
You can't tell me it's not a crazy world out there.
Oh yeah. I love when you guys are talking about Tupac and all the whole rap game. It's very mafia-like, I would say.
Well, yeah, and then my buddy Jeffrey Wilson, who's the one that set me up with all this information, he's the one that kind of got me up to speed. I didn't know all this stuff was going on. I don't pay attention to anything. And once I got to be about 35 years old, all I did was work. I didn't pay attention to anything that was going on other than Fox News. And, I lost my mind with the Fox News thing. So Jeffrey Wilson is the one that has been filling me in all this stuff because he's doing, he's done documentaries. He's talked to documentarians, people that write books. He knows that game inside and out. And I started to learn from him, and it started to, you start to piece things together like John did, Mr. Potash. He starts to piece things together. And then when you look at the totality of all the information, it is hard to miss. It's just that people don't know this information. The Manson story with Chaos is something that I kind of thought in my head. I'm like, there's got to be more to the story. It doesn't really make any sense the way Vincent Bugliosi put it out there. Because I read Helter Skelter, I think, when I was like 13 years old. And, as I got older, I read it again. I read it for a second time. And I remember thinking, man, it just seems like a very odd story to sell. And then Chaos comes out and says, Vincent Bugliosi, who wrote Helter Skelter, was really not on the same page with him, with their conclusions. But I can't wait to watch this movie. What's the name of this movie again? Can you pop it up there, Isaiah?
CIA Drugs Are Us.
CIA Drugs Are Us. Most people, if you have smart TVs, have Tubi. Tubi's free. Yep. So you can go into Tubi and you can watch it. I'm going to watch it. I get back into Florida on Saturday night. I'm going to watch it as soon as my wife goes to bed very early. Isaiah. She's early to rise, early to bed, makes a woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. I think that's it. I'm not. I go to bed late, and I
needs her beauty sleep, right?
She needs her beauty sleep on the weekends. I sleep in just a little bit, so I'm going to watch this as soon as I get home and check it out, and we'll report back on it maybe Monday or Tuesday of next week because that's fascinating information. It really explains a lot about the world under the covers, under the fake information that we get from our press. As I always say, if you really look at the media is like a layer of let's keep this thing in, for dummies. It's like media for dummies. Everything is, nice and easy. But when you get underneath the covers, you start to realize that the world is much more complicated than you understand. When he says that that they were writing letters back and forth trying to confuse and write these letters that made people create tension amongst the East and the West Coast, these rappers and the gangs and this, and that, and the other. That seems to be what goes on in politics in general. You and I are talking about it now. You got everybody fighting amongst each other. And I'm like, I'm not going to fight with these people. I mean, if they want to pick a fight, I guess I'll respond. But
yeah,
you kind of see the same techniques where you have people on the same page. We want to talk peace. We want to talk solutions. And if you want to talk peace and solutions when you get into politics, everybody tries to rip it apart. And I'm like, well, don't the masses want peace? I mean, does everybody want war all the time? Do they want to be in constant turmoil with their neighbors, their friends, and their coworkers? Of course not. So let's sing a little kumbaya every now and again and say, what do we want as a society? You can't do it because you have political operatives that get right in the middle of it and they keep everybody fighting with each other. You can see it in Missouri politics. You can see it in Florida politics. You can see it in Illinois politics, the things that we cover. So it seems like it's Jeff always says that it's all organized crime, baby. It's all organized crime. And I think to a degree it must be that the intelligence agencies, my theory of the world, and we had that CIA guy on. Remember, he said he was former CIA.
Mm-hmm.
And as John said, nobody's really former CIA. That's how I see it. And he said, I said, this is the way I see the world. You have the people that print the money. They got all the power. If you're printing currency and you're getting interest on currency, you are in charge of the operation. So the people that print the money, the people behind the Federal Reserve, that is the most powerful structure on planet Earth. You take that and you say, I want to keep that system in place. I don't want people to not pay interest on the money that I'm printing, my fiat currency. So I develop intelligence agencies with that fiat currency, and you can make a global construct of it all because of the ability to travel and communicate information. So you have global intelligence propping up the bankers, and then how they use their methods to keep that system in control, I think is what John Potash.
Yes, it's all through the media, right? It's all through media. It's whether it's a news station, right? Whether it's a TV show, or music like you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about that documentary I was talking about, They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll. In there, they talk about the Doors, they talk about the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, Lester Crowley. Do you know Lester Crowley is on the Sgt. Pepper cover, for example? And he's the originator of the Church of Satan. The Doors, right? They sing the song Hallelujah, and then they switch it to Hare Krishna. And that's on purpose, right? Because they're trying to manipulate the mind that Hallelujah and Hare Krishna are the same thing, right? It's okay. It's, I know you grew up in this Christian nation, but, Hare Krishna, it's okay.
What is Hare Krishna? I don't even know what it is. I've heard it a million times.
It's
those
like
guys flowers in the airports back in the day, back in the 60s.
So if you've been in New York City, so the guys in the village, they're handing out cookies, right? They got their ching, 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 and they're dancing through the streets.
Yeah.
Those are the Hare Krishna.
What's the story behind them, though? What's the religion? What is it?
It's an Eastern religion.
Kind of like Buddhism, kind of thing?
Yeah. Very, very mystical. And a lot of those are very demonic once you get into the roots of them. And so that's why it's very interesting how, it's propagandized to us through all these media outlets. It's not just the mainstream media news telling us the narratives, right? But you also have the music influencing people too, right? And Hollywood influencing people too. So it's a mass infiltration of the intelligence agencies through all of these media outlets, essentially, or channels.
They are infiltrated.
Yeah.
It's man, isn't that fascinating stuff though? It really is. To me, that is where like intelligent people go for information as they try to figure out how the world actually works. And to see all of that, the Chaos book I thought was so fantastic, and I think John probably has very similar study. He started, he names author after author after author as to what's going on. Kevin puts on the screen, Josh Hawley wants to see you under the covers, Rob. And that's not, come on. I don't think
that's great.
Josh is very manly. But to me, that's the most fascinating information. That's the stuff that really I want to study. Like when I read about that and I start, because, when you're 56 years old and you've had a lifetime of just paying attention, from the outside, you're kind of paying attention to these things. And then you get to be my age and all this stuff starts to make sense. All the things that you've studied and looked at over the years, and you start to piece it together and have it make sense. I find that absolutely fascinating stuff. Did you see it that way? I mean, I don't know how the audience looks at it. The first time it made, I don't know if it works for everybody, but for me, that's right up my alley.
Who's the Masked Singer tonight, right?
Yeah, who's on the Masked Singer tonight? Right. All right, let's do some advertising here because we got to pay for this operation, and I want to make sure that my people are taken care of. Let's do Jones Water. JonesWater.com, JonesWater.com for all of your air and water filtration needs. It's always JonesWater.com. As he likes to say, you'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter, JonesWater.com. He's offering a $250 special on April Air products or an April Air product along with water filtration. So if you are in the market, and you should be, if you don't have water filtration in the year 2026, Isaiah, I just have to ask what's going on. Have to understand what's in your water. We had Robb Workman at the event last night. And he talks about all of the poison that goes through AI and these infrastructures that are just nobody even pays attention to it anymore. But you look around society, Isaiah. I just ask everybody, look around society. Go to the grocery store and see all the people that are on those little carts because they can't walk through the grocery store. Go to the airport and you'll see. If you go to Southwest Airlines, Isaiah, sometimes you'll have 10 or 12 people in wheelchairs because they can't walk to the plane. There's something going on. And one of the things that is causing a lot of illness in our country is dirty air and dirty water. So clean your air, clean your water. It's the first thing you should do for your home. I mean, if you're going to have your family safe, you might want to try some clean air and clean water. JonesWater.com. If you want to do business with Everett on the Missouri side, it's St. Charles County, Lincoln, Franklin, Warren, St. Louis, and Jefferson. If you go to the east side, Madison, Monroe, Jersey, and St. Clair, JonesWater.com. Been around since 1995. They'll treat you right. Good friend and a supporter of what we've been doing from the very beginning. And then we have Mitch and...
You didn't say the dark side with the east side. It's the first time.
I'm trying to befriend the people on the east side now. All right. They pay a little higher taxes, but I'm starting to try to be friendly to them. RocketCareers.com, nationwide business here with RocketCareers.com. So it doesn't matter where you live, RocketCareers.com will take care of you. If you're a small to medium-sized business and you cannot find good candidates for your business, just go to RocketCareers.com, job placement. They'll take care of you on the employer side or the employee side. But small to medium-sized businesses, this is where they excel. As I say, you should not work with these big corporations. You don't need to. You can work with one of your neighbors, somebody who's associated with the show. They'll do great work for you. They'll do better than the big operations, and they'll treat you right. You'll make a friend at the end of the day. So if you're out of work, hate your job, they'll help you with the elevator pitch. They'll put your resume together, and they'll connect you to their vast network from state to state around the country. RocketCareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. My good friends Mitch and Brian. Again, if you're out of work or you hate your job, launch a new career at RocketCIT careers.com. It is the weekend, Isaiah. And on the weekend, you get your oil changed, don't you? That's what they tell me anyway. Tony Clark says, Rob, everybody gets their oil changed on the weekends. They should come during the week. It's less busy and it's easier, but for some reason, everybody wants to get their oil changed on the weekends. It is Valvoline Express Care. Valvoline Express Care, 15 minutes from Bay to on your way. No appointments, no sales pressure, no nonsense. All Valvoline branded products. Valvoline Express Care. If you want to get some coupons, Valvoline-Express Care. Valvoline-Express Care if you want to get some coupons. And then last but not least, let's run through these locations. If you want to do business with Tony Clark, there's a lot of Valvoline Express Cares out there. His stores are in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So if you're in Cape Girardeau, obviously, we need to see that sticker on your window. Highland, Illinois, Troy, Illinois, Lemay Ferry Road, Warrenton, Missouri, Mid Rivers Mall Drive, St. Peter's Parkway. When it's time for an oil change, it's always Valvoline Express Care. If we do not see that sticker in your window, it is impossible for us to be friends. All right, Isaiah, what else do we want to get to today? I'm going to stick with the MK Ultra here for just a minute and ask, I wonder if...
it's Friday, so I do have to leave right at noon because we're open all day.
We got 6. Where are you going? You ain't got nothing to do.
Our office is open all day on Fridays.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Anything?
Babysitter leaves at noon. So
babysitter leaves at noon. What did you think about the Jewish connection there? Did you see anything there? He says there's a higher level. I agree with him that there's a higher level.
So interesting. He opened my eyes to something that is an interesting. I think Rick Babbitts has talked to us about this too.
Yes.
And he's trying to help us. Rick's so smart, so it's kind of it's so sometimes it's so out of reach.
I can listen to him twice sometimes to get it all.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And John broke it down for me in a way where it made sense to me, in an easy to understand way of like, hey, you have the Rockefellers who are these Protestants, you have JP Morgan who are these Protestants, right? And they're trying to, hey, no, it's the Catholics and the Jews, right? They're the ones who are controlling all of this. And so that was very interesting kind of to have them break that down. Because usually with Rick, we're talking about the British crown and things like that as well. And so we don't necessarily get into the Protestant versus the Jewish and Catholic.
Well, it would make sense.
Battle, I guess you could call it.
Would not leave a paper trail or would not leave a trail for you to figure out, right? Doesn't that just make sense to people? Because I'm with John. I think This is what Rick Babbitt tells us. This is kind of where my mind works. That's why I say when they say they didn't burn the burn bags, I'm like, come on, nobody's that stupid. I think that they leave trails for us to follow, which is what I think John Potash was trying to explain to us. And I agree with him 100%. You cannot, don't get John up there. Well, come on, I'm right in the middle of a thought here. He'll say something stupid and it'll throw me off. I think this is I think this is the way it works. I think it's like somebody who can fight, Isaiah. People who can really fight never tell you that they can fight. They just, when it's time to go down, it's on like Donkey Kong, right? It kind of feels the same way here. If you are really behind things, you're not leaving information out there for people to see. So why would they do it this way? If you have, the whole thing with MK Ultra that blew my mind was you have Sid. I didn't even realize that Jolyon West was Jewish until Jeff Wilson told me that. So I said, wait a minute, that's really kind of odd. So you have the situation with Israel, which I think is kind of the punching bag. I just don't want to be Netanyahu and what he's doing over there at this particular point in time. But I think they're kind of where where people want you focused on them. And I do think like I said, I'm pro Israel. I'm definitely pro Jewish. I'm pro people. I like people. I don't care. I don't care.
You don't want Israel wiped off the face of the earth.
I don't want Israel wiped off. I wish harm to nobody. I'm not anti-Jewish in any way, shape, or form. It's an observation. The observation is that you have Sid Gottlieb, who's running the MK Ultra experiments for the CIA, and he's dealing with Jolyon West, who's also Jewish, who is keeping this a secret from everybody, and dealing with Jack Rubenstein, who's Jewish, who kills Lee Harvey Oswald after he assassinates John Kennedy. Then you've got the assassination of with Sirhan, who's Palestinian, who killed Robert F. Kennedy. And you start looking at this going, well, I see kind of a theme working here just a little bit that nobody's really talked about because the media doesn't tell you anything that's true. But you can definitely see a theme beginning to develop. Can you not?
Yeah. Think about the modern day, right? We go to the Epstein files, we go to the emails.
If they were all transgender,
and they're all talking, they're saying, hey, the goyim, right?
Right.
And so it's interesting. And then,
but who's protecting them?
I know.
To John Potash's point, who's protecting Jeffrey Epstein? It's not other Jewish people. It's the government. It's Alex Acosta. It's the intelligence agencies. It's whatever's going on there. But they're attached to everybody. And he's with another Jewish person, Robert Maxwell, from where? From the UK. And what was he trying to do? He was trying to infiltrate the media markets here in Missouri. He writes the school book.
He did with the school book. I was going to say
he did with the school books. I mean, I just wish
in the school books we learned that. In the school books, we learned that Rosa Parks, she was persecuted and she sat on the bus and they arrested her for it, right?
Yes.
And that's not really what happened.
Nothing's as it seems. Just to reiterate, nothing is as it seems. Now, there's some cursing in here. Some people get offended when there's cursing, but I got to play this.
You already said bullshit today.
I know, but I said you could turn your eyes, get ready to say it. So number 11. Okay, this is Sean Ryan. I don't care about Sean Ryan. I'm just talking about the information. You may or may not like Sean Ryan. You may hate Tucker Carlson. That's irrelevant to me. All I'm saying is this conversation I found very enlightening because Sean Ryan is basically saying what we've been talking about. Remember, you throw it out there. I say nothing that you think you know. Do you really know? And if you think that you know what you know everything, then you're a fool. There's no way to know what's really going on in this world because the information sources that we have are so corrupted that it basically is just it's a smoke and mirrors type operation we have going on in mainstream media, and that's on the right and the left. The trick is to make you think the left is lying to you, and then the left makes you think the right is lying to you when the reality is they're both lying to you. Okay, so Sean Ryan he's so disheartened by what's going on in the country. He's got a trailer out, and he's going to be on with Tucker Carlson tonight. So just check out this 5-minute trailer. Then we'll shut it down for the day. But check out this 5-minute trailer of Sean Ryan. Now, he's one of the most popular podcasters on earth. I think he had the #1 podcast on the planet at one time, if he doesn't now. I think Candace Owens is right up there along with Tucker. But listen to this trailer and what he says, because he comes to the same conclusion that we all should come to. We don't know anything. We really don't know anything. You might know.
We talked to Flat Earth Dave, right?
Talk to Flat Earth Dave may be smarter than all of us for all we know, right? So check this out. This is Sean Ryan and Tucker Carlson. They have a podcast coming out tonight that I think might be interesting to watch. But here is the trailer for it. Check this out.
I never want to involve myself in the U.S. political system or vouch for any man again.
Thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back.
And then there was this period where you, got involved, but you got closer to the political process. And now you're saying you don't want anything to do with that.
No, I never. I just don't.
Why?
Everything is a lie.
And then Trump, the last hope, winds up aligning with Chuck Schumer. At that point, you have to ask yourself, is there a political solution to the problems that we have? I don't know the answer, but I'm starting to think maybe there isn't.
I became obsessed with evil, like obsessed with it. I just got back from a Ibogaine 5-MeO experience. Didn't go great. Found hell.
Hell.
And I don't want to go too far into it because I don't want to have a meltdown on your show, but
it's okay.
This is what it's like on the receiving end.
Look at this.
I interviewed this guy, Pete Blaber. Have you heard of Pete Blaber?
No.
Pete Blaber was a colonel over at Delta. They sent him some imagery, and Pete said, I don't want to hear what you guys think this stuff is. Me and my guys will figure it out. We'll get it back to you, and then you'll have an unbiased. We don't want to be swayed.
This decontamination truck looks a hell of a lot like every water truck we've seen driving around in Iraq. And
if you're looking on your screen, if you remember back to when Colin Powell, now you're too young to remember this, Isaiah, because I think you were just a little baby, you might have been born yet. Mm-hmm. Colin Powell went to the UN and tried to sell the entire world that Iraq had nuclear weapons.
Oh, I remember.
Okay, you do.
Yeah.
And they showed some of the pictures you're getting ready to see here were pictures that were coming from Iraq, and they were telling us
Condoleezza Rice too, right?
Yeah, correct. They were moving around nuclear material on these trucks, and they had the yellow cake uranium. I think it was yellow cake, whatever it was. I can't remember. But anyway, they were selling the American people that Iraq had nuclear weapons, and you just have to remember back to that time frame, the propaganda. This is how you know your government is complicit in the game, and along with the media. They sold this to us for a year every day. This is Daddy Bush, Big Daddy Bush, whose father was Prescott Bush, who was funding the Nazis during World War II, just so we understand where these people are coming from. And they sold us on this idea. I remember thinking to myself, well, we got to bomb these people. We need to get after it. I think I told you when I first watched this, I was 21 years old, sitting in my house over in Creve Coeur, Missouri, watching it like I was watching a movie on television. And I'm thinking later on, there's people underneath those bombs. They're killing women and children and just people in general, just bombing the hell out of them in Baghdad. Well, this guy is what he's talking about here. He's going to show you these pictures. You have to remember, they told us this was, they were moving around nuclear material. They had these Scud missiles and stuff that they would drive around on these trucks, and they'd pop up like this and they'd shoot the missiles out. This is what they were selling us day in and day out. Back in the 1991 for the first Gulf War. Listen to what he finds out. Check this out.
if you were driving 40 miles out into the middle of the desert to a place that doesn't have any water, wouldn't you take a water truck with you? And he goes, next thing, these air purification systems, doesn't that look like the same thing we got on top of our buildings, an HVAC system?
What Delta, arguably the best special operations unit in the world came up with that's a water truck, huge water truck, because they're in the middle of the desert and they need water. And that big air filtration unit on the roof is an air conditioner.
Because they're in the desert.
And the sentry guard outside is dude taking a piss. And he sent it in, and they totally discarded everything and launched the invasion. Everything is a lie. Everything you fucking know is a lie. Everything you think you know, everything in the history books, it's all fucking lies.
If there are supernatural forces that are evil acting on people, which there are, and I've experienced them personally, then that's proof of God.
It's not faith to me anymore. It's fact. It is 100% fact.
So when you look ahead, you became one of the most successful people in this business, amazingly.
The Sean Ryan Show is the #1 podcast in the world.
I'll be there soon, Sean.
As of October 2nd, 2024.
So there's only one truth. I'm just not really interested in anything else anymore because It's all garbage. And it's that, black book right behind you, the Holy Bible.
That's the one truth.
That's it.
Did you know that there were supernatural forces, demons that could act on people? Did you grow up knowing that? Did you think about that?
I definitely didn't grow up knowing that.
Your wife said that God is always talking to you, but you don't hear it because you're distracted. Do you think that's true?
Yeah. That I let all the praise and all that get to me.
The idea that you know stuff that civilians don't know, that's a kind of arrogance and lie.
Yeah. And then I think it happened again. I got too wrapped up in it.
Yeah, we've all been there.
You see all these people get up there and they get addicted to this fucking power that they do not have.
Right.
And it's like you think you're so powerful. But you can't even
smart.
You can't even say what's on your mind. Like you're powerless. You have no fucking power.
Because they can't say what they really think.
Yeah, they can't say what they won't even stand up for what they believe in, man. Like look at the shit that's happening. You're going to sit here and tell me the fucking country's going great while the president of the United States kids are buying private islands with bunkers?
Right now, I'm working with my husband. We have this 1,400-acre island in the Mediterranean.
They're hiding the full picture of the Epstein files. They're hiding the full picture of everything. The Iran war. Like, is anybody over there talking about the petrodollar?
No.
Is anybody talking about the schizophrenic leadership that we're dealing with right now? Like the shit with Canada? Like, could you imagine doing business with the U.S.?
Thank you. It's a very, very big part of our plan. We had tremendous success at our first term.
Of course, who doesn't want more knowledge? Isn't the whole point of this business to find out how things work?
I don't want any part of that anymore.
So you're describing the phone as actively evil. I mean, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, one person showed me, what is that?
It's an apple.
Yeah, with one bite out of it.
Adam and Eve didn't get ejected from the garden because of their ignorance, but because of their knowledge.
Good. That one, Isaiah. I think that's a really good trailer. I want to see that.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
It's going to be good.
When he says you don't know anything, I think the brightest people in my life are starting to recognize all the things that they think they know. They might want to pay attention just a little bit closer because you don't know everything that you think you know. I have started to realize that once I dug into this, I started to realize almost 50 years of my life, I was misled, completely misled, not just from the school books, but from the media, from the conditioning over and over, from the media, from the music. I was just misled about things. We saw it last night. I mean, I don't want to talk about anything in particular, Isaiah, but we were at this event for David Robertson, and I was thinking afterwards.
Remind me, I got an announcement for him that he texted me while we were on the air. But
did you see some of that in some of the questions where you go, man, these people, I love them, but they are being led astray with some of the things that they believe, and it's tough because they're good people, they are well intentioned, but they're believing media sources that lie to them every day and create things in their mind that aren't real, but it's real to them because they see it on TV. Therefore, it becomes real. Yeah. And it's very interesting. You go ahead and get that, and then I'll give you
I was just going to say, and what I found is that the generation, the boomer generation, not all of them still watch mainstream media, but a majority still do. And I think that's the main goal of what we need to help with. I don't know about education or just helping them see out different points of view or something like that. But they were used to getting real news from the news media. And I don't know if they have that full realization of how it changed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so it's not their fault. I don't blame them. You know what I mean? I think that.
Me neither. Not at all. I think they're great people.
Yeah. And so I think that's a something that's holding them back a little bit. You know what I mean? Because they're not getting that full truth. And they
get emotionally
feel like they are, if that makes sense.
Emotionally invested too, right, Isaiah? Yeah. Because once you are emotionally invested in something where fear becomes a part of it, where anger becomes a part of it, those are emotions that sink deep. They hit your soul just a little bit harder. So when somebody says, wait a minute, you're looking at this wrong, they don't want to hear it. They've already made up their minds. It's a part of their personality now. It's a part of their conversations that they've had with their friends and family. And now it's who they are. It's not what they know. It's become who they are. So when you try to crack that, there's always a knee-jerk reaction to, hey, shut up. I already know what's going on. You're the one that doesn't know what's going on. And I say, as Socrates does, all I know is that I know nothing.
Yes.
That's all that I know. GraceHalling.com, GraceHalling.com, GraceHalling.com. Saw Gary Snyder there last night looking spry too. He had a nice tan on his face, big and strong. My man, Gary Snyder. GraceHalling.com, GraceHalling.com, GraceHalling.com. All things rubbish, all things trash. For in the St. Charles County area, you're going to see trucks and cans everywhere. That's because people like doing business with GraceHalling.com because they are the best people. Been around since 1998. They have 2, 4, 6, and 8-yard dumpsters for any commercial business. And if you're in the residential customer business, trash, recyclables, yard waste, and bulk pickups. Outstanding customer service, great pricing. GraceHalling.com, GraceHalling.com. One more time, GraceHalling.com. And then we have Advanced Wellness. I'm talking to some friends last night. I think if Helen, if you're listening, found some friends last night, Catholics that might want to come to the big event on September 12th. We'll talk about that here in just a bit. Then we have another one of Helen's friends coming on. I believe it is on August the 3rd. So we'll talk about what is the argument, Isaiah, between creation and
evolution?
Thank you very much. Creation and evolution on August the 3rd. So we have some fascinating conversations for, like I say, political savants will be very interested in these things. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. That is our good friend, Dr. Helen Gelhart. She assists with anything that will kill you. As she likes to say, feel, think, look better, and live longer. They have the earliest cancer detection blood test available on the market. They do pre-screenings for strokes and heart attacks. And my favorite, she has symptom reversal techniques for Alzheimer's and dementia. The best call you'll ever make if you have a friend or family member whose mind is beginning to go south. You see it, and before it gets too far down the road, you got to make the call. You got to get a hold of Dr. Helen Gelhart. Symptom reversal for Alzheimer's and dementia. What else can I say? Anybody who's been through it knows the devastation that it causes for a family. Get a hold of Dr. Helen Gelhart at 314-576-0094, advancedwellnessmed.com, 314-576-0094. And then, as always, when it's lunchtime and it's Friday, thank God it's Friday, Isaiah. I'm exhausted this week. I'll be back in Florida on Monday, back in the main studio. Might make some changes to it too, Isaiah. I'm going to get my wife working with it. Moe's Pizza in Washington, Missouri, as I like to say, a landmark in Washington, Missouri. And as he likes to say, God owns the place. I just work here. Get out to Moe's Pizza over the weekend. Get yourself the pizza and salad bar, delicious hamburgers and sandwiches, chicken wings, ice cream, and just a great family environment. Again, always remember, if you have any kind of get-together, whether it's Bible study, political meetings, anniversaries, birthday party, whatever it is, any kind of get-together, it's always Moe's Pizza out there in Washington, Missouri at the corner of Grand and 5th Street. When it's time for lunch, it's always Moe's Pizza in Washington, Missouri. Get there. All right, Isaiah.
Don't forget, you forgot to promote the burgers. You keep saying you want to promote the burgers.
I think I said burgers this time.
Sandwiches. You said sandwiches.
I didn't say burgers?
I don't think so.
Yeah, the picture of the burger on the screen. That looks kind of good. So maybe I'll get a burger.
Triple Mo
burger. I like pizza, so it's hard. If there's pizza and burgers, I'm generally going to gravitate toward the pizza. What am I going to do?
I go for the pizza buffet every single time.
Amen. What do you got for David Robertson?
Yes, David Robertson. So this was an announcement you said you were going to make that you forgot.
I didn't say I was going to make it. What are you talking about?
Well, he said he texted it to you, and you said you plan to announce it today. Is that there's a letter writing party? I do remember him talking to us about this last night. There's a letter writing party on Saturday, July 25th. So that's tomorrow for David Robertson at 7 p.m. in the home of Penny Waddle. And you can look up Living Praise Ministries is where it's held at 5180 Schumacher Road in High Ridge, Missouri. So it's 5180 Schumacher Road in High Ridge, Missouri. If you want to help out David Robertson, defeat David Castile in I think it's District 97, if I remember right.
Can't remember. House race.
House district out there in Jefferson County.
And I endorsed David Castile. And I'm a hard no on Amendment 5.
You endorsed David Castile?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
That's what happens at the end of the show. David Robertson. I endorse David Robertson because I like David Robertson and I believe in David Robertson. I think he's new to the political scene. I've just watched him grow over the course of the last year as he's started to, I kind of see what goes on and start to understand it from the same level that we are. And I think that he's going to go there and shake it up just a little bit. So I am down with David
It was
Robertson.
inspiring last night. He was really getting the people going with
Yeah,
what you're
and
saying.
I think he's gotten very good at explaining his point of view. I think he's really starting to get good as a candidate. So I am behind David Robertson. It's only the third endorsement I've ever made. Somebody asked me that. Jason Bowles walked up and he goes, he said, you've only endorsed 3 people. Who are they? And I said, well, I endorsed Denny Hoskins because he said he was going to get rid of the electronic voting systems. And why I don't endorse people in general is because we still have the electronic voting systems. And that makes me just a little bit nervous. Jen Olson, who wants to go to hand-counted paper ballots, elections are a big deal to me. So the first candidate outside of elections that I've ever endorsed is David Robertson, and I've done that simply because he's gained my confidence, which is not easy to do. I'm very skeptical, but I think he'll do a great job for Jefferson County. I think he'll do a great job for the citizens of Missouri. So again, David Robertson, he's got a handwriting campaign going on. I think they have 1,400 letters to write, and he's like, man, am I going to get this done? It's going to be just me. If I can get some people over to help out, it'd be great. If you're interested, Isaiah's got the information for you. You can just rewind it to that point and find it. And go help David Robertson this Saturday. That's all I got for you, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday morning at 9 a.m. as always on the Rob Carter Show. And please, Isaiah, whatever you do, never put anything that John Watson has to say ever.
And like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, but like, share, and subscribe. What did he put on there, by the way? Can we go back to that?
It was funny because it was about he used mind control. Let's see here. He was talking about mind control on the golf course.
Isaiah, talk about mind control. When I get him on the golfing, he should say golf course. See what I get him on the golfing course, and I'm in his head to the point of him going insane. Last hole with all the bets on the line, I can stop, hook a ball heading straight out of bounds. It will hit the smallest branch and kick straight to the. He's the luckiest golfer in the history of the world. Isaiah, I can tell you a real fast story here. And by the way, like, share, comment, subscribe. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Please, it's the only way we get past the algorithms. As he said, he was being. Remember, he just said, he goes, I get censored. We all get censored, my friend. When you're talking about certain things, you get censored. It just is what it is. Like, comment, share, subscribe would help us out greatly. I'm playing golf with John. Normandy Golf Course is a legendary golf course in North County. It's the oldest golf course west of the Mississippi. And on the 18th hole, it's a 250-yard par 3. Most people have to hit 3 woods and so forth into there. And he is the straightest hitter of the ball that you'll ever play with. The ball's like a machine. He's right down the middle. He's legendary for never missing the fairway. And now we got all the bets coming down the line. Him and I like to gamble a little bit on golf, or we used to. And then we started to hate each other, so we quit gambling. But he smashed one. It was going right out of bounds. There was a tree that was a centimeter. I'm serious. It was the tiniest tree. Isaiah, I'm not joking. When it looked like a twig sticking out of the ground, you could barely see that a tree was there. And I've got a perfect angle, and it's going right out of bounds. Which means if it goes out of bounds, I'm the big winner.
Oh, you're like, this is.
And as soon as it starts heading that direction, I'm like, I love it. He hooked one out of bounds. This is so fantastic. And I'm fun bunching just a little bit. And as I'm watching it in my mind, I'm saying this is the luckiest guy that has ever played golf in the history of the world. There's no way it's going to hit that tree. Sure enough. It hits this little tiny tree that was basically a twig. It hits it, and it doesn't bounce out of bounds. It doesn't bounce backwards. It ricochets off the tree right toward the green. And I said, I just don't know that I can beat you because something's going on here. It's something mystic is happening.
In disc golf, not regular golf. In disc golf, we call that tree love.
It was definitely some tree love. And what's interesting about the whole scenario is every once in a while he'll win. But I'm so much more talented.
Every once in a while,
I'm so much more talented at the game and so much better and so much longer off the tee. I do everything better than him.
So it doesn't matter if you 3-putt because you're already 3 shots ahead.
Which makes me think, because he's Catholic, which makes me think I should pay attention to the Catholics because he's very, very lucky. He does this every time he has a putt. He has a putt. He does one of those numbers. All right.
Mother Mary, guide my golf ball, please.
Guide my golf ball, please. Have a great day. We'll see you Monday morning at 9 a.m. Have a great weekend.
See you guys.